Chapter 47. Time passed bit by bit, and the crowd climbed higher and higher. Shangguan Luyun, who was in first place, had already reached the 85th step. His hands were no longer behind his back, but his entire body was suffused with spiritual light. He walked up step by step. It was obvious that 8 times the pressure was not easy for him. The person in second place was far behind him. Duan Fei stood on the 71st step. His handsome face was covered in sweat. He gritted his teeth and looked at the figure in front of him. Once again, he moved his feet with difficulty. Jiang Yulong, who was following closely behind him, panted heavily. He said hatefully, "I will definitely reach before you." Lin Xian stood on the 55th step. He had already absorbed a lot of the power of thunder and lightning. The spiritual power in his body had turned blue, and from time to time, electric arcs would flash. Crackle! A small portion of the power of thunder and lightning exploded in Lin Xian's hand, shaking his arm until it was numb. As expected of one of the most violent powers in the world, Lin Xian rubbed his arm. He had just merged with it and could not fully control it. When I finish the 99th step of the stone platform, I should be able to convert all the spiritual power in my body into the power of thunder and lightning, Lin Xian said with a smile. The spiritual power in his body was now abundant. Lin Xian, just as he was about to reach the 56th step, a weak voice suddenly came from behind him. It's you?" Lin Xian turned around. I realized that it's actually that shy girl, Yin Qingyi, behind me. Yin Qingyi wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand and said softly, "Hurry up and go. I can do it myself." Lin Xian smiled. "Do your best. I believe that you will catch up to me soon." With that, he stepped onto the 56th step and closed his eyes again. When he opened his eyes again, he realized that Yin Qingyi was standing at the side and secretly watching him. You're awake," Yin Qingyi said with a red face. Let's go." Lin Xian stepped onto the next step again. Yin Qingyi, who was beside him, followed suit. After a few times, Lin Xian realized that Yin Qingyi was always in sync with him. It was not strenuous at all. Although Lin Xian was walking slowly, he was now able to quickly absorb and digest the tiny blue electric arcs after so many fusions. His current speed had left many people behind, but Yin Qingyi was still able to keep up with him. Lin Xian smiled and stepped onto the next stone step with her. By the time he reached the 79th stone step, more than 90% of Lin Xian's spiritual energy was of the lightning attribute. At this time, most of the people in front of him had already passed. When the first person successfully passed, the first stage would enter a countdown. After 2 hours, it would end. The other disciples who had already passed the level were sitting on top of the mountain to rest, and they were looking at the disciples who were still climbing with a proud expression. "Look, it's that Lin Xian. He actually dares to challenge senior brother Jiang Yulong." Among the disciples below, Lin Xian received the most attention. He's only climbed to the 79th step now. Looks like his strength isn't that great. Many people were puzzled. Lin Xian ignored those people and stepped onto the 80th step. In the next moment, his body shook. A golden electric arc drilled into his body, causing the blue electric arcs to riot. Not good. Lin Xian's expression changed. He could clearly feel the power contained in this golden electric arc. It was much stronger than all the blue electric arcs that he had merged with before. If he was not careful, he could be consigned to eternal damnation. Quick, look at that good-for-nothing's expression. "Ha ha, I'm dying of laughter." Many disciples of the Shunwei group pointed at Lin Xian and laughed. He had just reached the 80th step, and he was already like this. They reckoned that Lin Xian would not be able to finish the rest of the stone steps. Many disciples shook their heads. At the top of the mountain, other than Shangguan Luyun, who was sitting alone with his eyes closed, everyone else was staring at the disciples below. Jiang Yulong looked at Lin Xian with disdain. What a good-for-nothing. He doesn't even have the right to make me attack. Tang, you stared nervously. Her big eyes flashed. This can't be. How can this bastard be so weak? When she saw Yin Qingyi beside Lin Xian, she could not help but pout and snort. Are you okay? Yin Qingyi saw that Lin Xian's face was pale. She used her hand to tug at the corner of Lin Xian's clothes. In the next moment, a faint golden electric current rushed towards her and quickly touched her small hand. Yin Qingyi cried out softly. The tip of the long sword in her hand was pointed downwards. Countless strange runes quickly formed around her, transmitting the golden electric current to the ground. All of this happened in an instant. The other disciples didn't notice it at all. Even if they did, they wouldn't care. Who would care about a disciple who could only stop at the 80th step? However, above the clouds, there were a few figures sitting cross-legged. Among them was the purple-robed middle-aged man. He suddenly opened his eyes and frowned. The lightning on Thundercloud Mountain seems to be rioting. Rioting? What rioting? Lei Yunzi, you are too sensitive. How can those little fellows below cause such a commotion on Thundercloud Mountain? Said the figure beside him. He was also a middle-aged man, but he had a mustache. Lei Yunzi scanned the area with his divine perception again and didn't find anything abnormal. Only then did he dispel the doubts in his heart. Lin Xian, who was below, slowly opened his glasses. A golden light flashed across his eyes. It was too dangerous just now. The golden electric arc nearly exploded in his body, but he managed to suppress it in the end. The lightning powers behind are too violent. With your present strength, it's best you don't absorb any more, reminded Lord Alcohol. Okay. Lin Xian nodded secretly. The spiritual energy in his body had completely transformed into the lightning attribute. Furthermore, it had a hint of golden light, making it twice as powerful as before. I didn't hurt you just now, did I? Lin Xian looked at Yin Qingyi apologetically. Yin Qingyi shook her head. Suddenly, her expression changed slightly. Aya, it's almost time. Then let's go, Lin Xian said. The two began climbing with all their might. However, Lin Xian had fused with the lightning of Thundercloud Mountain, so the pressure didn't affect him at all. Although Yin Qingyi walked slowly, it didn't seem to be strenuous for her. Are you a sword array master? Lin Xian asked as he looked at Yin Qingyi's strange sword moves. Yes. Yin Qingyi continued holding her sword with the tip pointed downwards. A translucent sword array formed around her, enveloping the two of them. This way, the pressure can be transferred elsewhere, Yin Qingyi explained. The two of them walked at a leisurely pace. They didn't seem like they were testing at all. Instead, they seemed like a couple taking a stroll. Finally, before the time was up, the two of them stepped onto the last step and passed the test. Humph, you actually wasted so much time. What a bunch of trash. Some of the divine Might Group disciples said disdainfully, I advise some people to get lost quickly. If you only came up now, I'm afraid you won't be able to pass the second stage. If you have a death wish, I don't mind sending you on your way. Lin Xian's lips curled into a sneer. Do you believe that I won't throw you down the mountain right now? Chapter 48. Lin Xian's strength was beyond everyone's expectations. Although the disciples were indignant, they did not dare to make a move. They snorted coldly and turned away. Not long after Lin Xian arrived, the time for the first stage was up. The 99 stone steps were covered by clouds and became hazy. In the sky, the purple-robed, middle-aged man appeared again. With a wave of his sleeve, hundreds of streaks of black light scattered and rushed towards the crowd. Lin Xian reached out at lightning speed and caught the object flying towards him. He discovered that it was a black token with the number 135 written on it. He looked at Yin Qingyi's token and realized that her number was 134. He estimated that he should be the 135th person to pass the first stage. I didn't expect that out of the tens of thousands of disciples, only a little more than 100 would pass the first stage. This selection is really strict. Lin Xian sighed. Congratulations on passing the first stage. Next, you will proceed to the second stage. The purple-robed, middle-aged man in the clouds said, Go down the mountain. Someone will tell you what to do. The crowd descended the mountain. When everyone reached the flat ground, Thundercloud Mountain behind them emitted a loud boom and then slowly disappeared. The others did not feel much about it, but Lin Xian looked at it reluctantly. Ah, there are still so many golden electric arcs that I haven't had time to absorb. Shaking his head, Lin Xian suppressed the matter at the bottom of his heart and looked ahead. All disciples go to the Central Martial Arts Arena. A clear voice sounded in everyone's ears. Then, the disciples who had passed the first stage walked towards the Central Martial Arts Arena. Looks like the second stage is an arena competition, Lin Xian thought to himself. Hey, you bastard. Why are you so slow in the first stage? Tang, you deliberately slowed down in front. When she reached Lin Xian's side, she asked angrily, I'm sorry. I dragged senior brother Lin down, Yin Qingyi said softly beside Lin Xian. It's not that. Lin Xian quickly comforted Yin Qingyi and explained to Tang Yu, I was too excited yesterday and didn't sleep well. With two beauties accompanying him, Lin Xian once again attracted the attention of the crowd. Many male disciples stared at him fiercely. If looks could kill, Lin Xian would have died 1,000 times over. The Central Martial Arts practice field was very spacious. When Lin Xian and the others arrived, they discovered that many people had already gathered here. In the north was a golden viewing platform. Seated on it were some elders of the sect. On both sides of the golden viewing platform, there were many ordinary viewing platforms. They were spread out in a fan shape and were filled with people. As far as the eye could see, there was a sea of people, and it was extremely lively. Lin Xian and the other 140 outer sect disciples stood in front of the stage, quietly waiting. However, the lively atmosphere had already ignited their fighting spirit. Who wouldn't want to defeat a strong enemy in front of so many people and display their heroism? Moreover, this was the inner sect selection. If they performed well, they might catch the eye of one of the inner sect elders. Thinking of this, the youths were excited. Soon, streams of light flashed and a majestic aura surged. A few figures landed on the arena. Their bodies were glowing with a dazzling light, like flames dancing. The long robes on their bodies fluttered in the absence of wind. Every one of them was like a god descending to earth. The entire martial arts practice field suddenly quieted down. Lin Xian felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. The spiritual energy in his body boiled as he tried his best to resist the pressure. Whether it was Lin Xian or the other outer sect disciples, their faces turned pale as they looked at the figures on the stage in horror. Seeing this scene, the middle sect disciples must have known the content of the second round. On the stage, one of the middle-aged men with a square face said, That's right. The second round is an arena battle. The number on the token in your hand represents your ranking in the first round. Each ranking will have a corresponding result and reward. The second round is the same. Now, let's talk about the rewards for the second round. First place will be rewarded with a pure spirit pill, a mid-mystic rank martial art, and a human rank artifact. Second place will be rewarded with a low mystic rank martial art and a small yellow pill. Hiss! All the disciples sucked in a breath of cold air. A mystic rank martial art, and a human rank artifact. These things were definitely super tempting to martial artists. Moreover, there was a pure spirit pill. All the disciples would go crazy. What is a pure spirit pill? Lin Xian didn't understand. Country bumpkin. Tang, you once again looked down on him. A pure spirit pill is a third-grade pill. The spirit power it contains is extremely pure. If an ordinary pulse condensation stage martial artist swallows it, they can instantly break through to the next stage. Moreover, if a pulse condensation stage martial artist swallows it, it can greatly increase their chances of entering the spirit sea realm. This is a treasure that all pulse condensation stage martial artists desire, increasing one's cultivation by one stage and increasing the chances of entering the spirit sea realm. Lin Xian sucked in a deep breath. He must obtain such a good thing. Not only Lin Xian, but the other disciples' faces were also red. They couldn't wait to start the competition. The square-faced middle-aged man saw that the atmosphere was stirred up and smiled. Your ranking now represents the number of this round. If you are selected by the judges, you will go to the arena battle. Also, the first round's reward is that the top 10 do not need to participate in the first round. Now, the second round begins. 5 middle-aged men with high cultivation stood on 5 different stages and began to draw lots. Everyone looked at the top 10 in envy and prayed that their opponents in the first round would be weak. Not long after, the 5 judges began to announce the competitors. First arena, number 38 vs. number 53. Second arena, number 7 versus number 63. The 10 disciples who were called out went on stage and prepared for the competition. Although the rankings in the first round were different, this didn't mean that number 38 would be able to defeat number 39. After all, the first round was only a test of perseverance and potential. It couldn't directly reflect a martial artist's actual combat ability. Sure enough, there was an upset in the first match. Number 53 defeated number 38 and obtained victory, advancing to the next round. Lin Xian and the others retreated to the side to watch. Shangguan Luyun sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. In his opinion, none of these people were his opponent. Soon, the competition on stage finished. The judges called out the names again, and this time Lin Xian was one of them. 135 against 88. On the 5th fighting ring, Lin Xian walked up to the ring calmly. His opponent was already standing on the ring. Too cool. My luck is off the charts. I can actually fight against number 135. Looks like I can easily win this time. This was an ordinary-looking youth. He looked at Lin Xian, his eyes filled with pride. Lin Xian's face was calm. No joy or sadness could be seen. Jiang Yulong looked at Lin Xian and smiled disdainfully. He then turned his head. He didn't think that Lin Xian was worth paying attention to. Few of the top-ranked disciples paid attention to the 5th stage. Instead, they were all looking at the 2nd stage. It was a battle between number 15 and number 21. This kind of ranking was already considered an elite disciple and was worthy of their attention. Chapter 49. On the 5th ring, Lin Xian versus Jin Su. Hee kid, consider yourself unlucky to meet me. Jin Su laughed wildly. If you were willing to admit defeat, perhaps you would suffer less. Lin Xian was expressionless, carrying a dark red great sword on his back. He looked at Jin Su and said, "You talk too much nonsense. Kid, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Jin Su was furious. He slapped his scabbard, and the long sword came out. His whole body turned into a ray of light, rushing towards Lin Xian. Good sword technique. Lin Xian raised his eyebrows. As expected of a disciple who passed the first round, your skills are indeed extraordinary. This sword technique already has a hint of sword force, incomparably sharp. Before the sword arrived, the sword chi had already arrived. Lin Xian was as still as a mountain. When the tip of the sword was about to arrive, he suddenly made a move. As fast as lightning, his palm slapped the sword body. Suddenly, the long sword that was stabbing towards Lin Xian deviated by 3 centimeters. Lin Xian did not stop. He flipped his palm, clasped his fingers, and flicked the sword body. Ding! A clear sound rang out. A fierce force traveled along the sword body to Jin Su's arm. As if hit by a heavenly hammer, Jin Su's palm cracked. The long sword flew out of his hand and shattered in the air, scattering on the ground. Jin Su held his right hand and retreated. There was no longer any arrogance in his eyes. He finally understood why Lin Xian was expressionless. It was because the two of them were not on the same level. I lost. He seemed to have lost his strength. Number 135 wins. The referee's voice rang out. What happened? Why is it over? Those who looked at the second ring asked, wanting to know what happened. What? Flicking the long sword with a finger and injuring Jin Su? Are you kidding? Jin Su is the 88th disciple. No, I must watch number 135's next match. Just as those disciples were discussing, a deafening shout came from the fifth ring. Senior Brother Lin is mighty. Brother Xian is handsome. Brother Xian took first place in one go. The spectator stands near the fifth arena were filled with Southern District disciples. There were also some disciples who often sparred with Lin Xian. When they saw that Lin Xian had won in one move, they all cheered. Apart from the core members of the three factions and the four heroes of the outer sanctum, few disciples could win so many cheers. Many disciples turned their heads to watch. Humph, looks like that trash is very popular. Yan Kong sneered. Don't worry about him. He won't amount to much. Our goal is to suppress the combat group. Jiang Yulong didn't care about Lin Xian at all. Lin Xian returned to the resting area. At this moment, the battle on stage number 2 had yet to end. The battle group disciples wielding battle sabers and the divine might group disciples wielding long swords were locked in battle. The two figures were as fast as ghosts, and the sky was filled with their afterimages. Ordinary disciples simply couldn't see what was happening, and only some of the stronger disciples were able to catch their movements. Lin Xian was naturally able to see their movements. He also realized that although the divine might group disciples' sword techniques were elegant, they were surrounded by their opponents. Within 10 moves, they would be defeated. Congratulations, the battle group disciples are about to win, Lin Xian said to Tang Yu with a smile. Tang Yu mischievously winked and didn't say anything. However, the divine might group disciples nearby couldn't bear to listen. Brat, what do you know? How dare you spout nonsense? That's right. Can you see the battle on stage clearly? In order to please a beauty, you dare to lie with your eyes wide open. I despise you. Those disciples didn't think that Lin Xian could see the battle on stage clearly, let alone determine who won and who lost. However, after 7 moves, these people almost bit off their tongues. The divine might group disciples had indeed lost. Moreover, after Lin Xian finished speaking, they immediately lost. Damn it, crow's beak. Brat, if you dare to spout nonsense again, I'll teach you a lesson. The divine might group disciples glared fiercely at Lin Xian. Lin Xian shook his head helplessly and ignored them. At this moment, he was recalling the battle on stage too. These elite disciples were indeed not weak. Every one of them was very strong. He had also gained some experience from the battle. More than 100 disciples took turns to battle on stage. All kinds of moves were used. The spectating disciples cheered and exclaimed in satisfaction. Finally, the first round of the competition ended. Other than the top 10 disciples in the first round who didn't need to compete, half of the 130 disciples won and moved on to the second round. As there were 65 people competing, one person would get a bye. Those disciples who advanced closed their eyes and prayed silently, praying that they would get a bye. Yin Qingyi, you get a bye this round. The square-faced, middle-aged man's voice rang out. Yin Qingyi's mouth was half open. She had a surprised expression on her face. The others were extremely disappointed. Congratulations on successfully advancing, Lin Xian said with a smile. Thank you, senior brother Lin, Yin Qingyi said with a red face. Next, this is the second round of the competition. Number 135 against number 49. Such a big gap. Looks like it's going to be a blitz battle, some spectators said unhappily. Lin Xian didn't expect to be the first to go up. However, it was good. After the competition, he could return to the resting area to watch the others compete. Thinking of this, he stood up and carried his dark red sword on his back. Then, he slowly walked up to the stage. F***CK. This is the guy who cursed our divine might group. Senior brother Shui, teach him a lesson. The disciples of the divine might group shouted. Senior brother Shui, beat him. Countless disciples in the spectator stands were shouting. Shui, watching, walked leisurely and enjoyed the cheers from the spectator stands. He knew that the cheers belonged to him. However, out of his expectations, a wave of unusual cheers sounded out from the nearby arena, and it was like the waves of the sea, each wave louder than the last. Senior brother Lin, do your best. I have faith in you. Beat him to death. You must beat him to death. Lin Xian, beat him to death with your sword. Brother Xian, we support you. The disciples of the Southern District are with you. That voice was so loud that it wasn't any weaker than the divine might groups. Many disciples who had advanced couldn't help but look over. I didn't expect that other than the three major powers, there would be someone with such a reputation. I'm looking forward to it. Near the golden spectator stands, a youth in black laughed. What, you want to rope him in? The youth beside him said, I'm just looking. The youth in black didn't say much. Instead, he looked at the stage. Kid, looks like there are many people supporting you. I wonder if they will be sad when you are defeated? Shui Huaqing sneered. In his opinion, Lin Xian dared to steal his limelight. He was simply courting death. I finally know why you all want to join the divine might group, Lin Xian said expressionlessly. Why? Shui Huaqing asked subconsciously. Because you are all idiots. Will you die if you don't talk nonsense when fighting? Lin Xian rolled his eyes. Very well, kid. I'm officially informing you now that I'm angry. Shui Huaqing said coldly. The consequence is that you have to leave lying down. Chapter 50. Shui Huaqing shouted angrily, and a light yellow spirit power burst out from his body, covering his entire body in an instant. The surrounding airwaves spread out. In his palm, a ball of yellow spirit power spun at high speed, forming a sharp-winged blade. Extremely overbearing. Thousand-blade palm. Shui Huaqing pushed his palms towards Lin Xian, and the sharp wind from his palms was like thousands of blades, making a deep sound. Pung! Lin Xian was as steady as Mount Tai, and his right fist suddenly punched out. This punch used all the muscles in his body, and the power was concentrated on his fist according to the thunderclap sword art. The two figures collided, and a terrifying energy wave swept out in all directions. The audience in the front stage was blown back by this gale. On the stage, Lin Xian was as tall as a mountain, and his face was as calm as water without a trace of change. On the other hand, Shui Huaqing was pushed back a few steps, and his breathing became rapid. The audience in the stands felt a chill, especially the disciples of the godly might group. They were clear about Shui Huaqing's strength. He was at the peak of the 5th level of the pulse condensation period, and his 1,000-blade palm was practiced to the large success stage. Under normal circumstances, he could even contend against a 6th-level pulse condensation period disciple, but now he was pushed back by a single punch. Duan Fei, Jiang Yulong, and the others were also surprised. Even the silent Qian looked at Lin Xian a few more times. If we don't get rid of this kid, he'll be a disaster. Jiang Yulong suddenly remembered his agreement with Lin Xian. He had forgotten about it, but Lin Xian's stunning performance made him remember. Damn this guy. How can he be so strong? Shui Watching's face was ugly. He had already said that he wanted Lin Xian to crawl out of here. If he couldn't do it, then he would lose face. Yellow Wind step. Shui Huaqing ran quickly, and his body became blurry. Gradually, his afterimage appeared on the stage. Wind dashed the world. Shui Huaqing, who was moving at high speed, attacked again, fusing the wind from his palms into his movements. Originally, his movement technique was a mid-yellow rank martial art, and his palm technique was also a mid-yellow rank martial art. But when the two were combined, the power broke through the mid-yellow rank and faintly had the power of a high-yellow rank martial art. This brat has some ideas. Jiang Yulong said solemnly. Lin Xian took a deep breath when he sensed the ferocious wind coming from the palm. Then he stomped his foot on the ground and dashed forward. Rolling thunder. His right fist punched out without any fancy moves. It was purely relying on brute force to crush his opponent. Boom. The palm wind that Shui Huaqing was so proud of couldn't even withstand a single blow from Lin Xian. It shattered like an exquisite porcelain. Puff. His body slid back more than 10 meters and flew out of the ring, falling to the ground. What powerful strength! Some of the disciples who had advanced began to pay attention to Lin Xian and secretly estimate his strength. Some of them had already regarded him as an opponent and began to search for his weakness. Duan Fei narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect that the little sword slave he met 3 months ago would have grown to such an extent. Looks like your godly might group situation isn't too good. Luo Yi laughed as he crossed his arms. Humph. Yan Kong's face was gloomy. He couldn't wait to go up and kill Lin Xian. Jiang Yulong's eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. As for Shangguan Luyun, who was ranked first, he closed his eyes and pondered. It was as if nothing could attract his attention. The competition continued. The disciples on the ring fought with all their might. Brilliant light overflowed. Terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations and cheers shook the sky. Duan Fei's appearance pushed the scene to its climax. His handsome face was enough to kill most of the female disciples. Coupled with the title of the outer sex 4 heroes, the entire martial arts practice field was calling Duan Fei's name. This guy, after entering the inner sect, is a pretty good seedling, said a black-clothed youth near the golden stands. But he's a member of the combat group. I'm afraid you can't poach him, right? The youth beside him didn't hold back. Humph, what big 3 organizations? It's just a name made up by a group of bored people. The situation outside is urgent. The safest relationship is obviously in a small group, said the black-clothed youth. The youth beside him shook his head helplessly and didn't say anything else on the golden arena. Some of the sect elders looked at Duan Fei and chuckled as they said, "A few decent fellows have appeared in the selection competition this time around. Oh, I wonder which ones Elderly has taken a fancy to? I think the outer sex 4 heroes are pretty good," said Elderly with a smile. "You old fox, you're too greedy." Another elder blew his beard and said, "I still think the top 10 are pretty good." "Old Fong, which little fellows do you think are pretty good?" Someone asked Elder Fong. Elder Fong stroked his beard and said with a smile, "I think that Lin Xian is pretty good." "What do you think?" "Lin Xian? I don't remember." The elders shook their heads. Elder Fong didn't mind. He changed the topic and talked in another direction. On the ring, Duan Fei moved like a gust of wind. His speed was so fast that no one could react. In the end, his opponent was stunned. When Duan Fei stepped down from the ring, countless female disciples screamed. This made Jiang Yulong very unhappy. When he went on the ring, his opponent was unlucky. He was sent flying by the sword and kept vomiting blood. After that, Shen Qian, Yan Kong, Luo Yi, Tang Yu, and the others went on the ring and won. However, when the referee announced the next round, the entire martial arts practice field suddenly became quiet. There was only one name that could have such magical power, and that was Shangguan Luyun. His opponent was number 23, but his opponent had directly given up, which made everyone feel quite disappointed. The second round ended, and the third round began. Fortunately, Yin Qingyi got a bye once again. This made her a little dazed, and it made countless disciples jealous to death. In the third round, the contestants who were ranked at the top once again displayed their powerful strength. In the third arena, disciple number 15, Wei Yong, looked at Jiang Yulong in horror. One move, just one move, and he was defeated. He didn't dare and was helpless. However, he didn't dare to challenge again. In the first arena, disciple number 17, Guofangwu, moved his long sword. The gorgeous sword light filled the entire space. He stabbed out 1,300 times in a row. Even the void was trembling, but he didn't touch the corner of Duan Fei's clothes. After 1,300 sword strikes, Duan Fei sent him flying with just one palm. In the fifth arena, Lin Xian's opponent was Luo Yi. "Ha, Brother Lin, I didn't expect you, and I would have such a battle." Luo Yi laughed. Yeah, Lin Xian couldn't help but sigh. He remembered that when he first came to the duty hall, he got to know Luo Yi. Later on, Luo Yi's footwork aroused his interest. "I hope Senior Brother Luo won't show mercy," Lin Xian said in a deep voice. Luo Yi was stunned. Usually when they were polite, they would say that they hoped for mercy. However, Lin Xian actually said that he hoped for mercy. However, he knew that Lin Xian said that because he didn't want him to have any misgivings. "Brother Lin is straightforward. Then I won't be polite." Luo Yi laughed loudly. He took a step forward, and like a flickering shadow, his body directly appeared in front of Lin Xian. Chapter 51. Fast, extremely fast, Luo Yi's footwork had reached an unimaginable level. In an instant, he was in front of Lin Xian. The disciples in the stands were in an uproar. Most of them did not see Luo Yi's movements clearly. However, this did not hinder their support for Luo Yi. His footwork has improved again. In the resting area, Duan Fei looked at Luo Yi on the stage and whispered with a smile, "I'm afraid that other than Duan Fei, few people can match Luo Yi's footwork." Hua Yongping said in a low voice. "Humph." Yan Kong's face was gloomy. He did not like the two people on the stage. "It's best if both of them are injured." Without any sound, it arrived in an instant. Luo Yi's cultivation had reached the 6th level of the Meridian stage. His high-grade yellow rank martial art, wind walking steps, had been practiced to the phenomenal stage. In terms of footwork, other than Duan Fei, he was not afraid of anyone. Misty traceless sword. The sword came out silently, like an antelope hanging its horn, untraceable. The long sword shadow could not be seen in the air. There was only sword chi that filled the sky, turning into a sword net that surrounded Lin Xian. What a terrifying sword technique! This sword technique was far above the ordinary 6th level of the Meridian stage. The battle group was indeed full of elites. The unparalleled sword chi cut the ground around Lin Xian into countless pieces. It was a shocking sight. The space Lin Xian could stand was getting smaller and smaller. He was about to be injured by the sword chi. At this time, Lin Xian moved. The red flame sword swept out, drawing a full moon in front of him. Ding, ding, ding. The sword chi hit the sword body, bursting into sparks and cutting the sword net. At the same time, on the red flame sword, the figure of a giant mountain was faintly discernible. Lonely mountain sword technique. Lin Xian slashed out with his sword. It was as if a mountain was crashing down, causing the surrounding space to tremble. The net of swords in the air was crushed into pieces before finally shattering into pieces. Whoosh! Luo Yi did not expect Lin Xian's sword technique to be so powerful, he could only retreat hastily. At the same time, he knew that he had met his match. Sword Shadow Mountain Force. This is Sword Force. He actually managed to condense Sword Force. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian in shock. No one would have thought that a disciple with such a low ranking would have Sword Force. Damn it, why is this guy so powerful? Yan Kong's face was terrifyingly gloomy. Hua Yongping, who was beside him, was also silent. Even Jiang Yulong and the others looked at Lin Xian in surprise. Duan Fei and the others were still fine, but Jiang Yulong's eyes were incomparably cold. Good boy, I didn't expect you to grow so fast. It just so happens that I'll deal with you on the arena this time, and let you know that even if you've condensed Sword Force, you're still trash. On the golden spectator stands, the elders were also slightly surprised. Elder Fong, on the other hand, was all smiles as he stroked his beard, looking as if he had known all along. Sword Force was a kind of aura that would be displayed after the sword art had reached a certain level. Its power was incomparably great. To be able to display Sword Force, one must have at least reached the perfection stage in sword arts. Very clearly, Lin Xian's Lonely Mountain sword art had long reached the perfection stage. A thick sword aura slashed out, cutting a deep trench in the ground. Luo Yi relied on his outstanding movement technique to continuously move around the arena. Misty Ripple Traceless Sword. The sword light was like water ripples rippling out, incomparably dazzling. The spiritual energy in the air fluctuated violently, surging towards Lin Xian like a tide. Lin Xian was very calm. He was neither hurried nor slow. On the dark red great sword, the Lonely Mountain's reflection was incomparably ethereal. Every sword had the force of 10,000 pounds. He did not take the initiative to attack, but assumed a defensive posture, blocking Luo Yi's sword moves one by one. On the arena, the dazzling sword light and ear-piercing rumbling filled the air. Luo Yi's sword art became increasingly smooth. He had never displayed the Misty Ripple Traceless sword to such an extreme level. The sword art soared into the air, and the sword was traceless. Every move had an ethereal feeling. He was completely integrated into the sword art, unable to extricate himself. He had been stuck in the great success stage for a long time, but could not break through. But now, that stubborn bottleneck had loosened a little. At this time, if he was hit or Lin Xian was hit by him, this wonderful state would be interrupted, and Luo Yi would lose a chance to break through. However, with so many sword thrusts, not a single one hurt Lin Xian. They were all blocked. Moreover, Lin Xian's moves were clearly coordinated, allowing his sword art to proceed smoothly. One attacked and one defended. The attack was incomparably fierce, dazzling, and the defense was watertight, as solid as Mount Tai. The disciples on the spectator stand were stunned for a moment. Normally, they wouldn't be able to see such a vivid battle. Every move contained a wonderful transformation. Many disciples were delighted, as if they had comprehended something. However, there were also many disciples who could not understand the situation on the arena. Some of the members of the battle group were dancing with joy. Senior Brother Luo is amazing. His opponent is unable to fight back. Senior Brother Luo, go for it. Defeat him in one go. Just as the disciples of the battle group were cheering, the situation on the arena changed. With a boom, the long sword in Luo Yi's hand shone brightly, almost covering half of the arena. Sword hums were constantly emitted. Senior Brother Luo is going to use a big move. Some disciples of the battle group who did not know what was going on shouted. When the sword was unleashed, the sky was filled with cold light. It was like the autumn shadow of a cold pond, chilling to the bone. On Luo Yi's long sword, there seemed to be something special condensed, causing its power to more than double. Sword force again. The participating disciples were shocked. How can Luo Yi have sword force? Could it be that his sword art has reached the great perfection stage? Only a few outstanding disciples, such as the top 10 disciples and the elders, knew what happened just now. Damn it, this Lin Xian actually helped Luo Yi break through. How can he be so kind? Yan Kong gritted his teeth. Jiang Yilong's face was also ugly. Lin Xian's strength had once again exceeded his expectations. Moreover, there was another strong opponent in the battle group. How could he be happy? On the other hand, Duan Fei was smiling. He was in a good mood. Even the fairy-like Shen Qian looked at Lin Xian a few more times. She seemed to be very interested in him. After the sword light disappeared, Luo Yi's face was filled with excitement. He could not wait to look up to the sky and roar. He could not remember how long it had been. He could not improve his swordsmanship, but now he had broken through to the perfection realm. How could he not be happy? However, he knew that all of this was thanks to the young man opposite him. Brother Lin, thank you. Luo Yi, will remember this favor. Lin Xian smiled. Your swordsmanship is very exquisite. A breakthrough is only a matter of time. In fact, Lin Xian did not use his full strength. Instead, he chose to help Luo Yi because he felt that Luo Yi was a good person. He was not as arrogant as the others. Moreover, Luo Yi's footwork had once broadened his horizons. Now that he helped him, it was not a big deal. Moreover, he could also feel the sword force brought about by different swordsmanship. He also had a new understanding. Wait until I completely understand the sword force. I will fight with you again. Luo Yi said seriously. The top 10 disciples are very strong. You have to be careful. This bold and unrestrained youth laughed heartily and then jumped down from the arena. The judge was also impressed by Lin Xian's bearing. He had never seen someone who took the initiative to help his opponent break through. Just based on this, Lin Xian was enough to make him look at him in a new light. Number 135, Lin Xian wins. Chapter 52. Number 135, Lin Xian wins. The referee's voice echoed in the martial arts practice field. In the stands, a group of disciples from the battle group were dumbfounded. They didn't know what had happened. In the following matches, Lin Xian defeated his opponents in just a few moves. He appeared to be very relaxed, too strong. Does he have the strength to be in the top 20 of the outer list? Many disciples exclaimed. At this point, everyone listed Lin Xian as a genius expert. Many disciples even looked forward to Lin Xian breaking the current situation. For example, becoming another top expert in the outer sect. It's too difficult. Although Lin Xian's performance is very powerful, there's still a gap between him and the outer sect's 4 heroes. Even if it's the top 10, he might not be able to squeeze in. Some people didn't think highly of Lin Xian. Not necessarily. Lin Xian doesn't even have spiritual power now. He must have reserved his strength. I think he definitely has the chance to make it to the top 10. Maybe he's a body cultivator, and his spiritual power isn't outstanding. Many people didn't believe that Lin Xian still had a strong spiritual power. If that was the case, he was too scary. Next match, Shengguan Luyun versus Yan Kong. Those who were discussing Lin Xian stopped talking. All of them looked at the first arena with burning eyes. Shengguan Luyun, the number 1 in the outer sect, and the leader of the 4 heroes. He didn't belong to any faction, but no one dared to provoke him. Yan Kong's face was darker than charcoal. He couldn't help but curse. He wanted to forfeit, but due to his status, he could only bite the bullet and go up. As the person in charge of the outer sect of the Divine Might group, if he lost without a fight, it would have a huge impact on the Divine Might group. Fortunately, he was also an expert ranked 9th. Although he couldn't defeat Shengguan Luyun, he believed that he could still hold on for a while. Whoosh! Yan Kong leaped up and landed on the arena. Opposite him, Shangguan Luoyun was like a demon. He stood with his hands behind his back. He didn't even open his eyes. Arrogant, too arrogant. Yan Kong was trembling from head to toe. Even if his opponent was the first-ranked disciple, he was still the 9th-ranked genius. In addition, he was the person in charge of the outer sect of the Shenwei group. His status was incomparably noble. When had he ever been disregarded like this? Therefore, he used his strongest move right from the start, intending to teach this first place a lesson. 8 directions limitless saber. Yan Kong slashed out with his saber. The saber aura came from all directions and surrounded Shangguan Luoyun. Humph! This is a high-grade yellow-ranked martial art, and I've already practiced it to the large success stage. I don't believe you won't open your eyes. Yan Kong clenched his teeth and said, "Crack." Just as Yan Kong was secretly pleased with himself, Shangguan Luoyun, who was standing in the middle, stretched out his palm and made a clenched fist action. The blade aura in all directions shattered like a broken mirror. What? Yan Kong's face turned frighteningly pale. The disciples in the stands were also shocked by this move and forgot to cheer. Jiang Yulong suddenly straightened his body, his cold eyes staring straight at Shangguan Luoyun. Has this fellow improved again? I'm really looking forward to fighting with you. I want everyone to know that I'm the #1 in the outer sect. Duan Fei, Shen Qianer, and the others' eyes flashed. No one knew what they were thinking. On the golden stands, Elderly said in a deep voice, "This child is not bad." On the stage, Yan Kong watched his attack shatter in an instant. He didn't even have the ability to resist. Shangguan Luoyun was like a dazzling divine spear, standing straight on the stage. His tightly shut eyes still did not open. Boom. In the next moment, Yan Kong was directly sent flying by the condensed spiritual energy and fell outside the stage. Winner Shangguan Luoyun. Until the end of the match, the crowd only recovered from their shock. They were completely shocked by Shangguan Luoyun's imposing manner. Unfathomable. This was Lin Xian's evaluation. He didn't expect that there would be such a person in the outer sect. Humph, the world is so big. There are so many geniuses and geniuses. When you leave Cloud State in the future, you will realize that the outside world is more exciting. The geniuses outside are even stronger. Lord Alcohol said in Lin Xian's mind. Other things aside, a disciple from the Palace of War Gods in Central State can destroy the entire Cloud State by himself. Lin Xian was stunned. It seemed that the outside world was more terrifying than he had imagined. When I have the chance, I must go to the Palace of War Gods to take a look. Lin Xian secretly decided. The match continued. During this period, there were many exciting battles. The crowd was mesmerized by the spectacle. However, a strange match attracted the attention of most people. Number 3 versus number 134. Jiang Yulong versus Yin Qingyi. The difference between the two rankings was huge. It immediately attracted everyone's attention. Many people asked about Yin Qingyi. Only then did they remember that lucky disciple. I'm afraid her luck has come to an end after meeting Jiang Yulong. Which one is Yin Qingyi? I must see her. On the spectator stands, the disciples were looking forward to it. Don't force yourself. If you really can't do it, just forfeit, Lin Xian said with concern. That's right. Jiang Yulong is very detestable. You'd better not fight him, Tang Yu advised from the side. I want to try. Yin Qingyi lowered her head and said softly, What? You... Tang Yu wanted to say something, but was stopped by Lin Xian. Then, all the best. Lin Xian's voice was very warm. It was like the noon sun that shone into the girl's heart. Ah. Yin Qingyi lifted her small face and looked at Lin Xian in surprise. A trace of excitement appeared in her clear eyes. Yes, she nodded heavily. From the crowd, a skinny girl slowly walked out. Step by step, she walked towards arena number 5. She lowered her head and gripped the corner of her clothes tightly with her small hands as she walked into the arena. Humph, it's actually a little girl? Jiang Yulong stood arrogantly in the arena. He snorted coldly and said, "Admit defeat. It's meaningless to compete with a low-level disciple like you." In the spectator stands, many people sympathized with Yin Qingyi because she was too weak. In front of Jiang Yulong, she was like a tree that could break at any time. However, this girl who looked weak and delicate on the outside insisted, "Senior brother, please enlighten me. You don't know what's good for you." Jiang Yulong sneered. He pointed his finger like a sword, and a bright red sword chi shot out from the tip of his finger. It whistled as it pierced towards Yin Qingyi. The crowd was nervous. They wanted to see how this weak girl was going to dodge this fierce attack. Unexpectedly, Yin Qingyi did not dodge at all. Instead, she stabbed her long sword into the ground and formed a strange sword gesture with her fingers. A translucent sword array appeared around her. There were faint runes flowing around it. As the girl's hand gesture changed, a light screen formed in front of her and protected her well. Whoosh! The red sword chi hit the light screen and made the sound of ice and snow colliding. In the end, the two attacks reached a stalemate and dissipated in the air at the same time. No one expected this weak girl to be able to withstand Jiang Yulong's attack. Many people could not help but shout. Among them, the disciples of the battle group were even jeering and mocking Jiang Yulong. Get lost! Jiang Yulong was already in a bad mood. Lin Xian's sudden emergence, Duan Fei's calmness, and Shangguan Luyun's unfathomable strength all made him feel a deep sense of danger. A ray of sword chi shot out like a red waterfall and rushed towards Yin Qingyi with a roar. "Ah!" the girl exclaimed and hurriedly activated the sword array. However, she was quickly covered by the red light. Her weak body gradually flew into the sky. Amidst the audience's exclamations, her body gradually descended, as if she was about to fall into the endless darkness. Suddenly, a ray of sunlight pierced through the darkness. A pair of strong arms caught her. Immediately after, spiritual energy filled with vitality rushed into her body. Yin Qingyi slowly opened her eyes and said in a low voice, "Lin Xian." After Lin Xian caught Yin Qingyi, he quickly injected his spiritual energy into her. He was terrifyingly calm, like a ferocious beast that was about to explode. "You deserve to die." He stared at Jiang Yulong and said in a low voice. Chapter 53. What? You can't even stand this little bit of pain? Jiang Yulong joked. "Kid, you better pray you don't meet me. Otherwise, you'll end up miserable. You and I finally have a battle. When the time comes, I'll completely defeat you." Lin Xian supported Yin Qingyi back to the resting area. He actually dared to challenge Jiang Yulong? Too bold. Your news is outdated. This Lin Xian had already issued a challenge half a month ago. It seems like this time it's going to be a fight to the death. Everyone was discussing, but most of them were not optimistic about Lin Xian's chances. After returning to the resting area, Lin Xian checked on Yin Qingyi's injuries. Fortunately, the sword formation had absorbed most of the power. Yin Qingyi was only sent flying by the aftershock and did not suffer too much damage. The competition continued, and the top 8 were finally decided. Lin Xian successfully advanced. He could be the dark horse of this competition and attracted everyone's attention. Many disciples remembered this handsome youth with a dark red sword. His explosive moves and lonely mountain sword momentum were unforgettable. In the quarterfinals, the first match was between Shangguan Luyun and Lu Ming. The silent Shangguan Luyun still did not open his eyes. He defeated his opponent with just one move. This silent strength shocked everyone. It seemed that, until now, no one could make this youth take it seriously. The second match was a battle between two geniuses, Duan Fei versus Shen Qian. Both of them were one of the four heroes of the outer sect. Both of them had outstanding looks and were well liked by many disciples. It could be said that both of them were evenly matched in terms of strength and fame. Unfortunately, between the two of them, only one of them would be able to continue. Shen Qian was dressed in green. Her figure was graceful, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. The falling flower, mysterious jade palm, was even more dazzling. A pair of slender hands were flawless like white jade. Palm shadows filled the sky like falling flowers. Falling flower, mysterious jade palm. A high-grade, yellow-rank martial art. When practiced to the large success stage, it could cut through gold and break jade. It was impervious to fire and water. However, because it was easy to learn but difficult to master, it was ranked as one of the top 10 profound martial arts in the outer sect. However, not only had Shen Qian succeeded, but she had also reached the Great Circle. The palm images that filled the sky were like dancing petals, sparkling and translucent. However, Duan Fei knew that each of these beautiful flowers contained fatal killing intent. Dozens of palm shadows lined up in the air, forming a huge jade palm that covered the sky. "This is palm force," many disciples exclaimed. "Swords have sword force. Palms also have palm force. When all martial arts are practiced to perfection, they will form a kind of force. Any martial arts that can form a force will be extremely powerful. Is this the strength of the four heroes of the outer sect? They are indeed terrifying." The disciples on the viewing platform exclaimed in surprise. Even some of the elders were looking over carefully. Duan Fei's expression was solemn as he continuously walked around the arena. His movement technique was very graceful, and he always passed through the layers of palm shadows without any injuries. His white robes fluttered in the wind, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the void. This was an extremely profound footwork. Compared to him, Luo Yi was simply like a beginner. Lin Xian stared at Duan Fei's figure and constantly compared it with his own footwork. In the end, he was surprised to find that Duan Fei's footwork seemed to have surpassed the Great Circle realm and reached a mysterious level. He carefully experienced it, and a pair of star-like eyes became more and more clear. At that moment, his heart was particularly clear, and he experienced something that was beyond the footwork itself. At that moment, the situation on the arena suddenly changed. The mysterious jade palm in the sky suddenly fell like a giant palm seal that could destroy the world, enveloping the arena. Rumble! As the palm fell, the ground trembled. The rumbling sound shook the front row of disciples, and their faces turned pale, and their bodies trembled. Gravel flew everywhere, and a deep palm print was left in the center of the arena. It was bottomless, and Duan Fei had disappeared. "In the sky!" a disciple exclaimed. In the sky, Duan Fei jumped high, stepped in the air, and glided for a short time. F***CK. What kind of footwork is that? He can stay in the air for a short time. Everyone stood up excitedly, and they were stunned. Even Shengguan Luyun, who meditated all year round, opened his eyes. His dark eyes stared at the white figure in the sky, and there was a flash of light in his eyes. On the golden grandstand, the elders exclaimed again and again, and they did not hide their admiration. "I didn't expect there to be such a talented young man other than Shengguan Luyun. I'm afraid no one in the outer sect can beat him in terms of footwork," Elderly said with a smile. "Yes, there are 2 seed-level disciples this time. It seems that our Black Heaven sect is going to prosper." The other elders also laughed. In the sky, Duan Fei took 7 consecutive steps, and his body left a stream of light in the air. At the same time, a long sword appeared in his hand. The sword light shone, and the sword Qi soared into the sky. white feather sword. In the sky, countless sword lights seemed to have turned into white feathers, whistling and shooting toward the arena. Each of them was lifelike and as sharp as a knife. Shen Qian also cried out. Her pair of jade palms were suffused with a green light, and the palm shadows that filled the sky collided with the white feathers, making clanging sounds. The two of them fought fiercely for hundreds of rounds. The exquisite moves in their hands were endless, and it was amazing. On the entire second arena, there were pits of various sizes, and there was not a single place that was intact. In the end, Duan Fei's skills were better, and he won the match with his ghostly footwork. When the two of them left the arena, there was a thunderous applause and countless cheers from the grandstand. Everyone seemed to have gone crazy, and they roared with all their might. Since the beginning of the match, this was the most thrilling match. There were no instant kills, and there was no complete abuse. The two of them were equal in strength, so the fight was naturally interesting to watch. The cheers lasted for a long time before it stopped, and the referee announced the next match. Jiang Yulong versus Wang Meng. The whole scene could be said to be one-sided. Jiang Yulong slashed 3 times in a row, and each slash was like a fire dragon. The horrifying high temperature made many people's expressions change. "This is a fire attribute spirit power," an elder exclaimed. He actually condensed an attribute. It was no wonder that the elder was surprised. Ordinary disciples could only condense an attribute spirit power after entering the inner sect and learning a profound rank cultivation technique. Almost no one in the outer sect could condense it. Even Shangguan Luyun and the others did not show it. Of course, this could also be because they deliberately hid their strength. However, to be able to condense an attribute spirit power in the outer sect was enough to show Jiang Yulong's talent. Jiang Yulong's expression was wild, and his black hair danced wildly. His entire body was enveloped in a fiery red spirit light, as if a fire god had descended. 3 slashes sent the 7th-ranked opponent flying, showing his strength. "Shengguan, the first place this time will be mine." Jiang Yulong pointed his flaming sword at Shangguan Luyun, and his voice was full of confidence. Whoosh! Shangguan Luyun opened his eyes again, like a sleeping beast that was gradually waking up. His cold eyes turned into 2 purple lights that shot toward the arena. Jiang Yulong was not afraid at all. His eyes condensed 2 fire dragons and rushed toward the purple light. Boom! The 2 collided in midair, and sparks flew in all directions as terrifying energy swept in all directions. He actually dares to challenge Shangguan Luyun. Could it be that the number 1 in the outer sect will change hands? He has already condensed an attribute spirit power. Of course, he has the qualifications to challenge him. I'm really looking forward to their battle. Chapter 54. As the two of them confronted each other, an invisible aura instantly shrouded the crowd, making it hard for them to breathe. "You have the qualifications to make me fight." This was the first time Shangguan Luyun spoke. His voice was a little low, like a dull thunderclap hibernating in the clouds. Shangguan Luyun was a man of few words. With just a few words, he went silent again. The purple light and invisible pressure dissipated like flowing water. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" After a brief silence, the outer sect disciples in the stands burst into thunderous cheers. Of course, they hoped that the two of them would fight. This kind of duel between geniuses could only be seen in the inner sect qualifiers. It was impossible to see it at any other time. However, they also knew that if they wanted the two of them to fight, they would have to wait until the finals. The disciples in the stands temporarily suppressed their excitement and waited for the next match. The next match, Lin Xian versus Hua Yangping. Hua Yangping, the genius disciple ranked 5th on the outer sect rankings, was second only to the outer sect's 4 heroes. He was in charge of the outer sex law enforcement team and had extraordinary power. Some even suspected that his strength was very close to the outer sex four heroes. His combat strength was almost invincible among those of the same level. Lin Xian was the dark horse of this competition. He went from the 135th place in the first round to the top 8. His strength was obvious to all, and he was the idol of the ordinary disciples. "Humph, kid, I didn't expect to fight with you. Don't worry, I won't go easy on you." Hua Yangping's voice had a hint of mockery. Back then, his casual attack was blocked by Lin Xian, causing him to lose face. In the end, he didn't even manage to catch him. "Don't go easy on me. You don't even have a chance," Lin Xian said coldly. Lin Xian didn't have a good impression of this person. Back then, he wanted to catch him indiscriminately. Lin Xian had already blacklisted him. With the referee's order, Lin Xian pulled out the red flame sword from his back and slashed out. A lone mountain appeared. It was as heavy as 10,000 pounds, causing the void to buzz as it smashed towards Hua Yangping. "Humph, do you really think you're invincible with sword force?" A mocking smile appeared on Hua Yangping's face. He pulled out the long sword from his waist and stabbed it into the ground. With a swipe of his finger, a black sword formation appeared beneath his feet. It was as black as ink, and its shape resembled an abyss. Sword array. Lin Xian was stunned. He did not expect Hua Yangping to be a sword array master. After a moment of surprise, Lin Xian regained his composure. "No matter what you are, the sword in my hand can cut through everything." Within the black sword formation, Hua Yangping was smiling. He had enough confidence in this sword formation. Apart from the four heroes of the outer sect, no one else could break through his defense. With this formation, he could be said to be invincible. Lin Xian, "Oh, Lin Xian, I'll let you know that there are some people you can't afford to offend. Even if you have Elder Fong's support, I can still cripple you in the arena." Hua Yangping could almost see Lin Xian's helpless expression as he fell to the ground. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but laugh wildly. At this moment, in the resting area of the spectator stands, Yin Qingyi looked nervous. Her small hands gripped the corner of her clothes tightly. A trace of anxiety appeared on her pale face. She was also a sword array master, so she could clearly feel the terror of the black sword formation. "Lin Xian, nothing must happen to you," Yin Qingyi said to herself. Swoosh! Just when the red flaming sword was 1 meter away from Hua Yangping's head, the black sword formation suddenly emitted a black light. Strands of black sword chi intertwined with each other, forming a flashing sword chi defense. Boom! Lin Xian's sword carried the strength of a mountain. The violent sword chi caused the surrounding air to whistle, as if a real mountain was pressing down. The sword slashed down on the black sword chi defense. Countless chi waves rolled around the two of them. The power overflowed from the slash, leaving deep grooves in the ground. They were at least a foot deep, extending all the way to the bottom of the arena. One strike was so terrifying. However, the black sword chi only rolled violently a few times. Then, to the horror of the crowd, it was intact. "Ha ha! Lin Xian, is this your strongest attack? It's so weak." Hua Yangping laughed wantonly. He could now torture Lin Xian as he pleased. "Captain, what is mighty?" In the spectator stands, a group of disciples from the law enforcement team cheered loudly. "Get rid of that ignorant brat. Kill him in seconds. Finish him in one move." The disciples from the law enforcement team could not stop laughing. The other disciples could not help but sigh. Although he is a new dark horse compared to the veteran genius disciples, there is still a big gap. Yes, which of the geniuses on the ranking list does not have a trump card? I'm afraid Lin Xian will lose this time. "Is this what you're counting on?" Lin Xian asked calmly. He did not show any signs of irritation when his attack failed. The attack just now was just a warm-up. He did not use much strength. "You keep showing off. I'll make you kneel and beg for mercy later. Hua Yongping did not expect Lin Xian to be so calm. He was instantly enraged. To deal with you, 3 moves are enough. Lin Xian clenched the big sword in his hand again. I've already used 1 move. Now, there are 2 more. Lin Xian's voice was not loud, but it clearly spread throughout the martial arts practice field. What? Did I hear wrongly? He wants to defeat Captain Hua in 3 moves. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. He can't even break through his defense, and he wants to win in 3 moves? The disciples from the law enforcement team cursed. Even some of the elite disciples looked suspicious. To be honest, they did not think highly of Lin Xian. Of course, they did not believe that he could win in 3 moves. Even Jiang Yulong sneered. His eyes were full of disdain. Idiot, Shangguan Luyun suddenly whispered. His voice was so low that only Jiang Yulong, Duan Fei, and other genius disciples heard it. Shun Qian-er's beautiful eyes were full of surprise. She did not expect that the always silent Shangguan would curse. Even Duan Fei could not help but shake his head. He did not know who Shangguan was cursing. In the arena, Lin Xian made another move. The dark red big sword was rusty, but under the rust, there was a strange red light surging. Lin Xian combined the thunderclap swordsmanship and the lonely mountain swordsmanship, using the multiple forces of the thunderclap swordsmanship to activate the lonely mountain swordsmanship. Boom! Lin Xian's sword hit the black sword formation, bursting out a string of blazing sparks. His posture was exactly the same as before. Ha ha! Don't waste your strength. Hua Yongping wanted to laugh loudly, but before he could finish his words, the black sword formation changed. With a cracking sound, visible cracks appeared on the sword chi emitted by the black sword array. Then, the cracks spread out like a spider web. How is it possible? How can he break it? Hua Yongping's face changed greatly. Does he have the strength of the 4 heroes? He hurriedly mobilized the spiritual power in his body to control the sword formation, wanting to quickly repair the cracks. However, before he could do anything, the 3rd sword slashed again. Lonely Mountain as one. This blow directly shattered the black sword curtain. Layers of hidden forces surged like waves, each stronger than the last. Hua Yongping was submerged in the mountain-like power and had no power to resist. The next moment he flew out. Chapter 55. Hua Yongping was like a kite with a broken string. His body kept spurting out blood before he finally landed heavily on the ground. The scene was terrifyingly quiet for a moment. Lin Xian really won the match in 3 moves. This made everyone feel like they were dreaming. One must know that he was the number 1 person under the 4 heroes, yet he was defeated in 3 moves. Could it be that Lin Xian already has the strength of the 4 heroes? This was everyone's question. Hua Yongping was too careless. Otherwise, the battle wouldn't have ended so quickly. Duan Fei whispered. Jiang Yulong's face was terrifyingly dark. He had just mocked Lin Xian, but the result of the match gave him a heavy slap. Recalling Shangguan Yuyun's words of idiot not long ago, Jiang Yulong had the urge to kill. Of course, he knew that Hua Yongping was careless and underestimated his opponent. But so what if he knew? I didn't expect a trash to enter the top 4. However, your path ends here. No matter who you face, you will lose miserably. Jiang Yulong said hatefully, I really hope you can meet me. Lin Xian once again exceeded everyone's expectations and successfully entered the top 4. Next would be the semifinals. Among the top 4, other than Lin Xian, the dark horse, the other 3 were all young geniuses who had been famous for a long time. Every one of them was so dazzling. Duan Fei with his unparalleled Qing gong movement technique, Jiang Yulong with his condensed elemental spiritual energy, and the unfathomable Shangguan Luyun, who would obtain first place. After resting for 2 hours, the square-faced referee announced the start of the semifinals. The first match, Shangguan Luyan versus Duan Fei. Everyone suddenly became excited. They didn't expect to see the battle between the two strongest people in the first match. Shangguan Luyan was ranked first in the outer sect while Duan Fei was ranked second. His ranking was above Jiang Yulong. The semifinals were the two strongest people. Wouldn't the finals be one of them fighting with Jiang Yulong for first place? Everyone automatically ignored Lin Xian. They knew that Lin Xian was powerful, but in front of the three geniuses, no one was optimistic about him. Looking at the two people on the stage, Jiang Yulong's mouth curled into a cold smile. Very good. I will personally deal with that trash. On the arena, the two were 30 meters apart. Shangguan Luyan was dressed in black and stood upright. He had withdrawn all his aura into his body. He looked at Duan Fei opposite him. His finger flicked the ring on his left index finger, and a purple spear appeared in his hand. With a spear in hand, Shangguan Luyun's imposing manner completely erupted. The spiritual energy in his entire body pulsed. One man and one spear. It was as if they were going to tear the sky apart. Duan Fei focused his attention. Facing the number one person in the outer sect, he had no choice but to use his full strength. With a shake of the sword in his hand, Duan Fei's body turned into a beam of light and rushed over. His speed was very fast, even faster than when he was competing with Qin Qian. He left a series of afterimages in the air. The silver sword light condensed into a thin line and almost disappeared. Lin Xian frowned slightly. He had no choice but to concentrate fully to see Duan Fei's movements. In the distance, Jiang Yulong's expression also changed slightly. It seemed that Duan Fei's speed had surprised him once again. However, Shangguan Luyan, who was in the arena, was as still as a mountain. He held the purple spear in his hand very steadily. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and retreated 30 feet, instantly disappearing from his original spot. At the place where he was originally standing, several sword lights appeared out of thin air, turning the ground into fragments. Chi. Duan Fei's body appeared in front of Shangguan Luyan. The sword Qi pierced out like a waterfall, whistling through the air. His sword was like an antelope hanging its horn, untraceable. Even the sound was very soft, making it impossible to guard against. Facing such a terrifying swordsman, Shangguan Luyan finally attacked with his spear. It was a simple stab without any fancy moves, but it was like a peerless overlord attacking with all his might. At that moment, everything in the world seemed to have disappeared, leaving only this spear. The spear was like a dragon. The purple spear seemed to have turned into a purple dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. It roared and dispersed all the strange and sharp sword lights. Furthermore, its imposing manner did not diminish as it pounced towards Duan Fei. Ka. There was a series of explosive sounds in the air. The vast spiritual energy rushed in front of Duan Fei and pierced through him. On the spectator stands, all the disciples exclaimed, "Was it going to end like this?" As if in response, the Duan Fei that was stabbed gradually faded and dissipated. Finally, he disappeared without a trace. Afterimage. Lin Xian muttered. Using his own speed and combining it with his spiritual energy, he left an afterimage on the spot while his real body was hidden. It's indeed a good method. His gaze was like lightning as he quickly scanned the stage and finally found Duan Fei's figure. This guy is so fast. Lin Xian exclaimed. Shangguan Luyan naturally also discovered Duan Fei's figure. His spear trembled and pierced out again. Pooh. Every time Shangguan Luyan attacked with his spear, it would pierce through a Duan Fei. However, they were all afterimages. Duan Fei's afterimages were pierced one by one and disappeared. In the end, the entire stage was filled with Duan Fei's figure, and Shangguan Liuyun's spear. The disciples in the spectator stands watched nervously, afraid that they would miss any detail. This terrifying speed had already exceeded their imagination. On the golden spectator stands, a few elders laughed out loud. These little fellows are really not bad. Their potential is limitless. On the stage, Shangguan Luyun stood with his spear like a demon god. His gaze quickly swept across his surroundings. Suddenly, he twisted his body, and the purple spear turned into a cold light as it pierced to the right behind him. Clang, clang! A figure was shaken out as Duan Fei retreated in a sorry state. There was a trace of surprise on his face. "The game is over," Shangguan Luyun said in a deep voice. Suddenly, an even more intense aura erupted from the two of them. The rich spiritual energy was like two balls of dancing flames that constantly flickered. Ding, ding, ding. Duan Fei's sword was like a rainbow as countless sword beams scattered out. They were like millions of white feathers that covered the entire space. However, Shangguan Liyun's rich purple spiritual energy condensed on the spear, as if it had formed an invisible vortex that sucked in all the white feathers. Revolving spear style. Shangguan Luyun shouted in a low voice. On the purple spear tip, the rich spiritual energy crazily rotated. Together with the sharp spear tip, it constantly compressed the surrounding air. The surrounding air seemed to be deformed from the pressure. Duan Fei suddenly felt as if his body had sunk into mud. His complacent speed had also decreased. What is this? He was alarmed and had no choice but to use all his strength to break through. On the spectator stands, when the disciples saw Shangguan Liyun's spear deflect all the sword beams, they immediately exclaimed, "This spear technique." Lin Xian frowned. "This child is astonishing." On the golden spectator stands, Elderly once again exclaimed in admiration. To be able to use spiritual energy to such an extent and even produce the power of a vortex, this child's talent is rarely seen in 100 years. Chapter 56. Duan Fei's phantom-like movement technique lost its effect, and he was immediately at a disadvantage. The two of them engaged in close combat as purple beams soared into the sky as sword beams crisscrossed. However, Duan Fei had lost his speed. He was like a bird in the sky that had lost its wings. It was difficult for him to use his full strength. Wind-stirring sword. Duan Fei stabbed out with his sword as his muddy body became more agile. On the blade of the sword, the figure of a white condor appeared. Sword force. It's sword force again. As expected of one of the outer sex 4 heroes, other than his insane speed, he has also comprehended sword force. Shangguan Liuyun's eyes shimmered as the spear in his hand transformed into a flood dragon that pounced at the white condor. Immediately, the entire stage emitted an intense collision sound. Boom! After a shocking tremor, the two of them separated once again. A cross-shaped crack appeared where they were originally standing. It nearly split the entire stage into 4. Duan Fei retreated more than 10 steps before stabilizing his body. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Shangguan Luyun in horror. He saw Shangguan Luyun standing with his spear in hand. Divine flames danced on his body, and his aura did not show any signs of disorder. I admit defeat. Duan Fei put away his sword. His identity had been restrained, so it was futile to continue fighting. He might as well conserve his strength to prepare for the 3rd stage. Shangguan Luyun put away his purple spear and cupped his fists at Duan Fei before striding down the stage. Shangguan Luyun wins. The referee's voice sounded. Shangguan Luyun is too powerful. Even Duan Fei's insane speed has been restrained. Furthermore, he doesn't seem to have used his full strength. I'm afraid the first place this time will be Shangguan. Everyone was discussing Shangguan Luyun while Lin Xian closed his eyes. He was comprehending the movement technique that Duan Fei had used and Shangguan Liyun's unique vortex spear technique. According to Lord Alcohol, Shangguan Liyun's vortex spear technique was actually an application of spiritual energy. Every wisp of spiritual energy was precisely controlled and then circulated at high speeds, forming something like a vortex. This technique was similar to Lin Xian's thunderous sword technique. It was precisely controlling one's strength, allowing it to be used to its greatest effect. Second match of the semifinals, Lin Xian versus Jiang Yulong. 30 minutes later, the referee's voice sounded again. The winner of this match would be the final battle with Shangguan Liyun. Humph, it's finally my turn. Lin Xian, just you wait. With a leap, Jiang Yulong gracefully landed on the arena. He crossed his arms and looked very relaxed. From Jiang Yulong's, he doesn't seem to take Lin Xian's eyes. Of course, he has the confidence to challenge Shangguan Liyun. How can he lose here? Amidst the crowd, the disciples of the divine might group let out thunderous cheers, as though Jiang Yulong had already become the champion, where Lin says, "Why hasn't? Could it be that he's afraid?" Under normal circumstances, both parties should be standing on the stage by now. However, Lin Xian was nowhere to be seen. Humph, the result is the same. But it's the first time I've seen such a cowardly piece of trash. F***CK. Look at Lin Xian. What is he doing? Is he resting with his eyes closed? Has he fallen asleep? Someone noticed that Lin Xian was in the lounge with his eyes closed. He didn't look like he wanted to go on stage. F***CK. What's with the act? Just say it if you don't dare. Lin Xian, Yin Qingyi called out softly. Hey, you bastard, don't tell me you're really scared. Tang Yu muttered softly. Lin Xian opened his eyes and rubbed his head helplessly. He was still recalling the battle just now. He had basically figured it out. He just needed to put it into practice. If anyone knew Lin Xian's thoughts, their jaws would drop. How heaven-defying was his talent to be able to understand the essence of someone else's martial arts just by looking at it once. He stood up and walked slowly to the stage, facing Jiang Yulong. You still dare to come up? Jiang Yulong said disdainfully. I think it's better for you to stay down there. At least a coward can still live. You talk too much, Lin Xian said calmly. Humph, keep pretending. You really think you can challenge me after defeating Hua Yangping? Let me tell you, you're still far from being my match. I don't know who gave you that confidence, but from now on, your confidence will be useless in front of me. Lin Xian pulled out his dark red greatsword with a flip of his hand. Do you want me to give you 3 moves? Jiang Yulong was very arrogant. Otherwise, you'll lose in 1 move. How boring would that be? You'll let me have 3 moves? Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. Thank you. Then his body disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Jiang Yulong. He covered the distance of 10 feet in the blink of an eye. That speed was too terrifying. Before the crowd could react, Lin Xian slashed down with his red flaming sword like red lightning. It was extremely fast. The red sword was like a huge mountain. It was extremely heavy and pressed down on Jiang Yulong. Jiang Yulong could not dodge that speed and could only block it with his sword. Clang! The 2 swords clashed, and a metallic sound rang out. Didn't you say you'd give me 3 moves? Lin Xian sneered. I've canceled the benefits. Now, I want you dead. Jiang Yulong swung his sword away from Lin Xian's sword. His face was extremely ferocious. He had almost suffered a loss just now. I'll let you know what a real genius is. Jiang Yulong's sword was suddenly covered with a layer of red flames. It was as dazzling as the sun. After the flame-like spiritual energy appeared, the temperature in the air suddenly rose. Black spots appeared on the ground. That was the result of being roasted by the high temperature. In front of my fire attribute spiritual energy, you're no different from an ant. Jiang Yulong swung his sword. Layers of heat waves spread out, almost melting the air. Sword of the Flame Dragon. Jiang Yulong stabbed out. The red spiritual energy turned into a fire dragon and roared. In the blink of an eye, the fire dragon was in front of Lin Xian and was about to swallow him. Lin Xian activated the secret art of long life. The spiritual energy in his body quickly revolved. Ever since he absorbed the golden lightning, his spiritual energy had turned a light gold. A faint golden light covered his body, as if he was wearing a layer of golden armor. This was the first time Lin Xian had used spiritual energy on the stage. Looking at the golden light on Lin Xian's body, someone exclaimed, "Fifth level meridian condensing stage. Is there a mistake?" "What? Fifth level meridian condensing stage? You didn't see wrong. A fifth level meridian condensing stage defeated Hua Yangping? That's too monstrous." Lin Xian's current aura was indeed that of a fifth level meridian condensing stage. However, his strength far surpassed the average sixth level meridian condensing stage disciple. Is he going to take this sword head on? The disciples realized that Lin Xian had no intention of dodging. Is he crazy? That's elemental spiritual energy. How can his fifth level meridian condensing stage spiritual energy take it head on? That scene caused everyone to be confused. Even Shangguan Luyun's gaze flickered, and a trace of doubt appeared in his eyes. Several sword shadows flew out from his body and pierced toward Lin Xian from different directions. The angles were so tricky that it was impossible to guard against them. Thunderous sword technique. Lin Xian swung his sword continuously, each strike as fast as lightning, accurately shattering all the sword lights. The sword lights fell to the ground and formed small fire snakes about an inch long. They quickly slithered around and blocked off all of Lin Xian's escape routes. Startling snake explosion. Dozens of small fire snakes suddenly exploded. The terrifying energy instantly blasted a deep pit in the ground. Lin Xian was completely submerged in the violent explosion. Shadow step. A black figure escaped from the explosion in an instant. The golden spiritual energy shield on his body was deformed in many places. There was a fist-sized hole on his back. However, it was fortunate that he escaped. Shadow pursuit. Lin Xian did not stop. Instead, he rushed toward Jiang Yulong with his sword. This young man gave him a very dangerous feeling. He had to take the initiative to meet the attack and end the battle quickly. Otherwise, the consequences might be unexpected. His thunderclap swordsmanship had already reached the second level of perfection, so he could perform it as he wished. He stuck close to Jiang Yulong, and the long sword in his hand stabbed, swept, and lifted. All the basic sword moves had become deadly moves in his hands. The more Jiang Yulong fought, the more shocked he became. He was almost being suppressed by Lin Xian. Every strike of the red sword was as heavy as a mountain, but it was as fast as lightning. He had no choice but to use all his strength to deal with it. Moreover, every time his sword was about to stab Lin Xian, it would always be a little short. All of his moves would be dodged by Lin Xian. He knew that this footwork was practiced to an extremely profound level. In addition to perfect control, he could perform it as he wished. Even Duan Fei, who was below the stage, was shocked when he saw Lin Xian's footwork. Although Lin Xian was still inferior to him in terms of speed, Lin Xian was almost on par with him in terms of exquisite positioning and precise control at distance. Although it is a mid-grade yellow-ranked martial art footwork, the effect is better than a high-grade yellow-ranked martial art. It seems that we have underestimated him, Shangguan Luyun said in a deep voice from the side. Duan Fei glanced at Shangguan Luyun and said indifferently, "I'm afraid there will be more surprises. I saw him 3 months ago when he used a sword technique. If he uses it now, I'm afraid Jiang Yulong will immediately lose the match." "What sword technique is so powerful?" Shen Qian'er asked. curiously. Even Shangguan Lian was curious. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know how to use it. I believe there will be a result soon. Duan Fei's voice was a little gloomy. He recalled the heavenly meteor. At that time, Lin Xian was still a sword slave participating in the outer sect assessment. Who would have thought that 3 months later, he would be able to compete with a genius like the 4 heroes of the outer sect? Heavenly meteor. I wonder if I can dodge it? Duan Fei was very curious. Although his movement technique was extremely fast, he wasn't 100% confident. In the arena, Jiang Yulong was irritated by Lin Xian's close-range attacks. He roared, and the aura on his body suddenly more than doubled. Fiery fury. With a roar, the fiery red spirit power on Jiang Yulong's body suddenly spread out like a wave of fire, burning everything around him. The golden spirit power on Lin Xian's body turned into a golden battle saber, splitting the sea of fire in half. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of moves had passed. The two of them fiercely clashed and separated again, facing each other from a distance. Huff! Lin Xian slowly exhaled. The battle just now could be said to be evenly matched. He didn't use his full strength, and presumably his opponent was the same. Sure enough, after a few breaths, Jiang Yulong, who was a few feet away, seemed to have made a decision. That cold gaze made Lin Xian's heart tremble. I didn't expect you to grow to this extent. Jiang Yulong's heart was filled with hatred. If he had known earlier, he would have killed Lin Xian outside the Devil Abyss. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He could only helplessly accept this fact. But if you think you can defeat me like this, then you're too naive. Jiang Yulong's voice suddenly became very urgent. This was originally prepared for Shangguan Luyun. I didn't expect to use it on you. You should be proud of yourself for being able to die under this move. Chapter 58. You should be proud to die under this move. Jiang Yulong said coldly. He placed the long sword horizontally in front of his chest and bent his left hand in the air. His originally normal palm suddenly became fiery red. He gently brushed the blade of the sword. Suddenly, the entire long sword seemed to come alive and became incomparably red. This set of movements was very slow. After he finished, his entire face was abnormally pale. The long sword was as red as blood and emitted a throbbing that made people's hearts tremble. The terrifying temperature was twice as high as before, and the surrounding space was blurred. Drip! Jiang Yulong gently waved the long sword. The red flame was like liquid. A few drops fell on the ground and immediately burned through the ground. Moreover, the fire quickly spread in all directions. A drop of red liquid the size of a water droplet actually burned the bluestone slabs within a radius of a few feet. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He felt a fatal danger from the long sword. Clenching the dark red sword in his hand, Lin Xian prepared to use all of his strength to fight. Don't waste your energy. Even a 7th-level Meridian spiritual knight wouldn't be able to block this move. Jiang Yulong's voice was a little tired, but there was a trace of excitement in it. Although I paid a big price, it was worth it to get rid of you. Mysterious fire sword. A deep voice sounded. The bright red long sword carried a dazzling red light and formed a sword energy that was 3 feet long. Just the aftermath of the sword energy caused the ground to be shaved off a foot. The sword energy was as dazzling as the sun. It was so bright that the audience couldn't open their eyes. Lin Xian felt the threat of this sword. He crazily urged his spiritual power, the golden spiritual power attached to the sword edge, and small electric arcs constantly flowed. Lin Xian's body was also covered with golden lightning. He was like the thunder god. The thunderbolt sword in his hand pierced out like lightning. Thunder god's fury. On the stage, a golden light flashed, and then there was a shocking explosion. More than half of the stage was covered by an energy shield, and it quickly spread out. Countless stones flew up. The airflow quickly stirred and formed a gust of wind. The broken stones flew in all directions. Many of them flew towards the stands. The disciples in the front row retreated one after another. The broken stones hit the stone steps, leaving holes in them. The disciples in the front row had lingering fears and did not dare to move forward. F***CK, just the aftershock alone is so powerful. Are the two of them still human? I'm afraid that even the inner sect disciples are nothing more than this, right? Why do I feel that they have already surpassed most of the inner court disciples? What a freak. These disciples discussed animatedly, their tone full of envy. I wonder what's the situation inside. But this Lin Xian is really surprising. Yeah, no matter what the result is, Lin Xian is the true dark horse of this selection competition. Do you think Lin Xian has a chance of turning the tables? I'm really looking forward to it. Above the arena, a cloud of dust curled up, making it impossible for the crowd to see what was happening. They could only guess below. Duan Fei stared at the arena and frowned slightly. He turned to look at Shangguan Luyun and asked, "What do you think?" Lin Xian's final shroud of golden lightning seemed to be lightning attribute spiritual energy, so the outcome is hard to predict. Shangguan Luyun said in a deep voice, "Lightning attribute," Duan Fei muttered. "It's really a rare spiritual energy attribute, but why didn't he use that heavenly meteor?" Not only were the disciples guessing, even the elders on the golden stands were so shocked that they pulled their beards. Their eyes were wide open. "It's actually lightning attribute. Who is this youth? He's so monstrous," Elderly exclaimed. It was already very rare for outer sect disciples to cultivate an attribute, but now the most violent lightning attribute had appeared. How could he not be surprised? This little fellow is really surprising. Elder Fong chuckled as he stroked his beard. "Old Fong, you know him?" A group of old men looked at Elder Fong. On the stage, the dust finally dispersed and two figures appeared. "Look, the results are coming out." Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. The referee in charge of the competition waved his sleeves, forming a gust of wind that blew away the remaining dust. Finally, the two figures appeared clearly in front of the crowd. The two youths, one on the left and one on the right, stood upright. The doctor on the left was dressed in white, his eyes full of arrogance. It was Jiang Yulong. On the right, Lin Xian was dressed in black, his delicate face expressionless. "Ha ha ha!" Jiang Yulong suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. "Oh no, did Jiang Yulong win?" Seeing this, Tang Yu, Yin Qingyi, and the rest's faces changed. "I didn't expect you to be able to withstand this move." Jiang Yulong's body suddenly leaned back, blood spurting out of his mouth as he fell straight down. "Senior brother Jiang." The disciples of the Divine Might Group ran up to the arena and hugged Jiang Yulong nervously. Their faces were full of panic. They did not believe that the outer sect pillar of the Divine Might Group would lose, especially to a youth who had just made a name for himself. Carry him down. His life is not in danger, just some injuries. The referee's words put the disciples of the Divine Might Group at ease. They glared fiercely at Lin Xian, then quickly carried Jiang Yulong down the arena. "Little guy, you're not bad." The square-faced, middle-aged referee suddenly said to Lin Xian, "You have the strength and know your limits. The future of the Black Heaven sect depends on you disciples." Lin Xian respectfully bowed to the square-faced referee, then slowly walked down the arena. When he stabbed Jiang Yulong just now, a voice rang in his ears telling Lin Xian that he only needed to win and not kill. That was why he withdrew 30% of his strength at the last moment. Otherwise, Jiang Yulong would have been dead. Lin Xian and Jiang Yulong were both young geniuses. The sect did not want to lose such disciples, so the square-faced referee warned them. When Lin Xian walked down from the stage, the entire martial arts arena was filled with his name. The ordinary disciples had already taken him as their idol and were cheering nonstop. Their voices were so loud that it shook the heavens. And Lin Xian's experience was spread among the disciples. 3 months ago, he participated in the outer sect assessment as a sword slave and successfully entered the outer sect of the Black Heaven sect. And 3 months later, he grew from a little sword slave to a genius disciple who could defeat the 4 heroes of the outer sect. This magnificent transformation deeply stimulated these youths. Lin Xian did not know that his deeds had gradually become a legend in the outer sect. Many disciples had set him as their goal and cultivated madly. After the celebration, the disciples were deeply excited. The finals had finally arrived. Who would be the final champion? The finals will begin in an incense stick's time, the square-faced referee announced. Everyone knew that he was giving Lin Xian time to recover, so everyone waited patiently. Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, the art of longevity in his body quickly circulating. The spiritual energy that he had consumed was quickly recovering, and even some of his wounds were quickly stitched up. The power of the art of longevity finally manifested at this moment. His originally exhausted body was quickly filled with vitality. Those wounds were also smoothed out, and Lin Xian's strength was rapidly recovering. After an incense stick's time, he opened his eyes. Chapter 59. As Lin Xian stood up, the atmosphere in the martial arts practice field became lively again. Shengguan Luyan versus Lin Xian. One was the recognized #1 outer sect disciple. The other was a young genius who suddenly emerged as a new force. Who would be the final champion between the two? The two of them were more than 10 feet apart as they faced each other. Shengguan Luyan flicked his ring, and a purple spear appeared in his hand. Suddenly, his aura became completely different. From the original calm and reserved, it became unstoppable. The pulsating purple spirit energy seemed to pierce the heavens. Lin Xian held the dark red greatsword. He did not release any spirit energy and just stood there calmly. However, no one doubted his strength until now. He was like a treasure sword. Once he was unsheathed, the wind and clouds would change. Everyone was amazed. Lin Xian, you're worthy of me making a move. Shengguan Luyan said, between you and me, how about we decide the victor in 3 moves? 3 moves to decide the victor? Hearing this, the people below were completely ignited. They did not need to think to know that these 3 moves were definitely killing moves. It seemed like Shengguan Luyan planned to end the battle quickly. 3 moves? That's exactly what I want. Lin Xian did not want to drag it on. As soon as his words fell, Shengguan Luyan on the opposite side suddenly shouted. The purple aura on his body suddenly exploded, revealing a shocking battle intent. It was like a purple divine spear that wanted to tear apart the heavens. Shengguan Luyan's aura continued to rise. The purple aura rolled like a demon king was born. What a terrifying aura! Duan Fei stared at Shengguan Luyan on the stage. His expression was uncertain. Whoosh! Feeling this shocking aura, Lin Xian no longer suppressed the power in his body. Pale golden spirit energy rushed out and instantly covered his entire body. Around him, the air suddenly became violent. Countless golden lightning arcs were faintly discernible as they constantly wandered around his body. Lightning, it's actually lightning. Lin Xian actually had elemental spirit energy. At this moment, all the disciples stood up in shock. Their eyes were filled with shock. On the stage, Lin Xian was like a thunder god descending to earth. His black hair danced in the wind, and his entire body was enveloped in golden arcs of electricity. Even his eyes were imprinted with a golden hue. No wonder he could defeat Jiang Yulong. It turns out that he also has elemental spiritual energy. Moreover, it's the most violent lightning energy. These disciples didn't know what had happened at the last moment of the last match, but when they saw Lin Xian's current situation, they all came to a realization. On the arena, the two of them were fighting. Purple and gold clashed against each other, constantly rubbing against each other in the air, producing crackling sounds. Boom. The two energies collided, forming circles of ripples that spread out in all directions. With the two of them as the center, the ground around them turned into powder. Even some of the stone steps in front of them were shattered, soul-stirring 3 spears. First spear, vortex! Shengguan Luyin shouted. Endless purple spirit power poured into the spear, and the air trembled. The moment the spear was unleashed, the winds and clouds moved. It was as if a purple dragon had emerged from the sea. Facing this peerless spear, Lin Xian's expression turned solemn. This was the first time he felt a sense of danger. His body faintly trembled. It wasn't because of fear, but excitement. Yes, it was excitement. Lin Xian's eyes were as bright as the stars. A strong fighting intent burst out from his body. He was like a golden war king, holding a dark red greatsword. With the power of wind and thunder, he angrily faced the attack. Bang! The golden light flashed and fiercely collided with the purple spear, producing a thunder-like vibration. Those disciples with weaker cultivation felt as if their ears had gone deaf. They couldn't hear anything. On the purple spear, a purple vortex with endless suction force seemed to want to devour Lin Xian. This was the move that defeated Duan Fei. Thunder movement. Lin Xian shouted in a low voice. The dark red greatsword suddenly overflowed with a scarlet light, resonating with the golden electric current on the sword body. Layers of dark energy surged towards Shengguan Luyin like waves, just in time to resist the suction force. Shengguan Luyin was shocked. He didn't expect that Lin Xian's seemingly ordinary sword would contain so many dark energies. It was like the divine thunder from the 9 heavens, constantly accumulating power. For the first time, his vortex spear art had lost its effect. Furthermore, the golden electric arc constantly seeped into his spirit energy, releasing the power of thunder and lightning, causing his body to feel a sense of numbness. Humph! Shengguan Luyun's spear trembled and forcefully interrupted the attack. Both of them kept retreating and looked at each other warily. In one move, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched. The disciples in the stands were excited. They would never forget that the spear just now defeated the second-place outer sect disciple, Duan Fei. However, Lin Xian calmly received it. These two people have probably far surpassed the other outer sect disciples. Many elite disciples felt a sense of loss. Everyone could only see the general idea and didn't know what happened. However, Shengguan Luyin knew in his heart that he lost in the first move. If he didn't shake off Lin Xian's longsword in time, the golden electric arc would have penetrated his spirit energy defense. What is that golden arc of lightning? How can he control such terrifying lightning? Shengguan Luyin couldn't understand. This kind of lightning, even in the inner sect, no disciple could control it. However, it actually appeared in Lin Xian's hands. However, it was impossible for him to admit defeat like this. Shengguan Luyin was very confident in his spear art, especially the last 2 moves. Even if he was against a level 7 Meridian Spiritual Knight, he could still win. The second move, Purple Ray. The 8-foot-long spear had a purple light flowing on it. It was mysterious. This spear didn't care about the strange power, but the abnormal speed. Fast. It was extremely fast. That kind of speed made people unable to react. Even Duan Fei, who was always proud of his speed, after seeing this spear, his pupils shrunk and his back was covered in cold sweat. He thought about it again and again, and realized that he still couldn't dodge this spear. Lin Xian only felt the cold purple ray flash. Soon after, the long spear was like a dragon and instantly arrived in front of him. Speed. The corner of Lin Xian's mouth raised. This Shangguan Liuyun's moves were really similar to his. The first move was a strange use of power, and the second move was abnormal speed. Wrath of the Thunder God. Lin Xian's long sword turned into a red and gold light and clashed with the cold purple ray. He blocked it. Shangguan Liuyun's expression changed again. In terms of strength, he admitted that he lost by 1 level. However, in terms of speed, he had absolute confidence. Even Duan Fei wouldn't be able to dodge this spear, but Lin Xian actually blocked it. The spearhead of the purple long spear and the sword tip of the dark red great sword clashed. The two different powers devoured each other and then dissipated. This was definitely not a coincidence. Lin Xian also had abnormal speed. Thinking about this, Shangguan Liuyun's expression became abnormally serious for the first time. Chapter 60. Shangguan Liuyun's expression was extremely solemn, as he did not win after 2 moves. There's still one more move. Lin Xian, if you can take this move, you will be this time's champion. Shangguan Liuyun's voice was cold. What else do you have? Come on out. Lin Xian changed his usual gentleness. His words were filled with a domineering aura. The third move, Bright Sun. The purple spear was raised high by Shangguan Liuyun. On the tip of the spear, a purple vortex rapidly rotated. A large amount of purple spirit energy surged towards the tip of the spear. Under the effect of the vortex, it formed a fist-sized energy ball that was constantly expanding. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. The energy ball on the purple spear tip made him feel flustered. The power of the third move was probably greater than the first 2 moves combined. Other than the heavenly meteor, Lin Xian had used all his other moves. Furthermore, he did not want to use the heavenly meteor to resist. After all, that was his life-saving move. I can only try the 3rd level of the thunderous sword technique. Lin Xian did not have much confidence in his heart. He did not have time to think carefully. Shangguan Liuyun had already condensed the purple energy ball and used the purple light to rush over. With that speed, Lin Xian's transient shadow step had no way of dodging. Frantically circulating the longevity secret, Lin Xian raised the spirit energy in his body to the limit. The red flame sword in his hand suffused a golden thunderbolt as it swept out. Boom! The dark red sword that was originally able to withstand Shangguan Liuyun's second move was retreating in front of the purple energy ball. Lin Xian's small face was illuminated purple, appearing somewhat powerless. Break for me! Shangguan Liuyun exerted his strength once again. The purple energy ball resisted the dark red sword and slowly moved towards Lin Xian. This was almost half of the spirit energy in Shangguan Liuyun's body. It was all compressed into the fist-sized energy ball. After this move, his battle strength would be greatly reduced. This was also the reason why he said that victory would be decided in 3 moves. Facing this unbelievably powerful energy ball, Lin Xian's entire body tensed up. It was as if an invisible mountain was pressing down on his body, making it difficult for him to breathe. It's over. Lin Xian is going to lose. Everyone saw the situation on the stage. Lin Xian's struggling figure was reflected in everyone's eyes. Indeed, Shangguan Liuyun is still better. Someone sighed. Am I going to lose? No. How can I lose here? If I can't even beat these people, how can I face my family? How can I face my family members who are even more freakish? Lin Xian's eyes were filled with unwillingness. He wanted power, more power. His eyes were filled with madness. Under the thunderclap sword technique, The strength of his muscles was constantly squeezing out the potential in his body. Bang. Is. And, in the golden stands, Elder Fong's face froze. His eyes sparkled as he stared at Lin Xian. Originally, he thought that Lin Xian was going to lose. To be honest, Lin Xian's current results were already beyond his expectations. He did not expect the situation to change again. Not only Elder Fong, but even the ordinary disciples noticed the change in Lin Xian. Their already calm hearts were once again in suspense. In fact, the most surprised person was Shangguan Luyan. He could clearly feel Lin Xian's weakness. As long as he persevered, victory would be his. But he did not expect that at this critical moment, Lin Xian would break through. Yes, Lin Xian had broken through. He was originally at the peak of the 5th level of the meridian condensing stage, and was just a step away from breaking through. Now, in this environment, he had successfully broken through to the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. In 3 months, he had broken through from the 3rd level of the meridian condensing stage to the 6th level. This speed had never happened before in the Black Heaven sect. Lin Xian's current strength could be said to have more than doubled compared to before. With the art of longevity, he was now able to compete with Shangguan Luyan. A tyrannical aura was emitted from his body. The purple energy ball that was about to fly to his body was now controlled by Lin Xian. It even had the power to resist. However, just as everyone thought that the two of them were about to enter a protracted battle, the fist-sized energy ball constantly deformed, as if it was about to explode at any time. Sure enough, after a few breaths, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The entire arena was covered in purple light. On the golden grandstand, Elder Li and the others stood up one after another. They paid close attention to the situation in the arena. Many ordinary disciples were also nervous and restless. Whoosh! A figure flew out from the arena and quickly landed on the open ground. It was the square-faced elder. He was carrying 2 people in his hands. They were Shangguan Luyan and Lin Xian. The purple energy ball had clearly broken away from Shangguan Luyan's control, causing the situation to go out of control. At the critical moment, the referee intervened and saved the 2 of them. The sect would not allow such genius disciples to perish. Shangguan Luyan was covered in blood, and his face was pale. He had suffered serious injuries. Lin Xian, who was beside him, only had a pale face. If one looked carefully, they would realize that his skin was covered in a layer of black patterns. From afar, it looked like a black lotus. The square-faced referee thought that Lin Xian had a secret treasure on him, so he did not ask anything. However, one could still see the shock in his eyes. The black lotus patterns gradually faded before completely disappearing. Ever since Lin Xian could cultivate, this lotus had been very strange. As long as Lin Xian's life was in danger, it would come out to protect him. On the other hand, the mysterious sword did not move at all. Xiao Xuanzi, are you all right? In the Black Heaven sect, Lord Alcohol did not dare make a move casually, or he would expose himself. When that happened, even Lin Xian would not be able to escape. I'm just a little injured. It's nothing serious, Lin Xian said weakly. After receiving Lin Xian's reply, Lord Alcohol nodded and did not say anything else. The scene was chaotic for a moment. Many disciples were discussing the scene from before. Some were excited, while others were worried. However, most of them wanted to know what the situation was. Was it a draw? You won. Shangguan Luyan propped himself up and said softly. Both he and Lin Xian had been affected. He was injured, but Lin Xian did not bleed a single drop of blood. This difference made him feel uncomfortable. When the square-faced referee heard Shangguan Luyan's words, he nodded. After giving the 2 of them a pill, he said in a deep voice, Winner, Lin Xian. This voice echoed in the arena for a long time. Perhaps no one would have guessed that the champion would be Lin Xian. This delicate youth had broken the pattern of many years in the outer sect and successfully obtained the title of #1 in the outer sect. At that moment, the way everyone looked at Lin Xian changed. They were filled with fear, envy, and admiration. Chapter 61. Early in the morning, the sun was shining brightly. 3 days had passed since the second stage of the competition. In these 3 days, Lin Xian had already recuperated from his injuries and stabilized his realm at the 6th stage of the Meridian Condensation Realm. In these 3 days, many people came to see him, but he rejected them all with the excuse of recuperating. He knew the purpose of these disciples. They wanted to build a relationship with him and obtain benefits. During this period, the black lotus in his body appeared once again, shocking both him and Lord Alcohol. Lin Xian had also asked Lord Alcohol about the origins of the black lotus. This time, Lord Alcohol didn't beat around the bush and directly said that he didn't know. Lin Xian repeatedly asked. Lord Alcohol muttered a few words, and he vaguely heard something about not being in the same reincarnation cycle. However, Lord Alcohol planned to take action once. He took out the black lotus and let Lin Xian study it carefully. In my current state, I can only take action once. You have to grasp the opportunity well, Lord Alcohol said. Okay. Lin Xian nodded solemnly. He closed his eyes and pondered. He looked into his body and carefully scanned every inch. Not long after, the mysterious sword in his body suddenly trembled. A tiny sword wave spread out like a wave. Following that, a black object appeared at Lin Xian's 7th spirit meridian. It gradually transformed into a black lotus that was extremely beautiful. Lin Xian focused his gaze. The black lotus suddenly wrapped around the mysterious sword with a whoosh. It kept wrapping around it, wanting to cover the entire sword. The next moment, in the independent space inside the mysterious sword, a black lotus suddenly appeared on the desolate ground. It kept growing as though it wanted to pierce through this small world. Lord Alcohol's expression was solemn. He condensed a wisp of sword energy and attacked the black lotus, but to no avail. He sighed helplessly. There was nothing he could do. He was just too weak now. If not for the mysterious sword, he would have died long ago. Furthermore, the black lotus was abnormally mysterious. It had existed in an era before him, so it was normal that he couldn't do anything about it. The black lotus grew larger and larger, about to occupy the entire space. At this moment, the withered tree suddenly emitted a faint light that swept towards the black lotus. The lotus flower seemed to have encountered something frightening. It swayed its leaves and branches, continuously shrinking, and quickly left the mysterious little sword. Lin Xian sensed that the black lotus had transformed back into a black object. It was being chased by a beam of divine light. It kept running until it was finally enveloped by the beam of divine light. Lord Alcohol's hands kept changing seals as he controlled the divine light, slowly melting the black object inside. Then he absorbed the golden lightning in Lin Xian's body and fused it with the divine light. Finally, the divine light returned to the small sword. Lord Alcohol's voice sounded from inside. I've planted a sword intent seed in your body. It will become stronger as you grow. As long as you don't perish, you will one day become an expert in the world. Sword intent seed, Lin Xian murmured. He knew that above the sword force, there was something called sword intent. However, it was extremely ethereal and required extremely strong comprehension and luck. Ordinary people were unable to grasp it at all. It seemed to only exist in legends. But now Lord Alcohol was telling him that he had a sword intent seed in his body. This was the first time he had heard that sword intent could be planted with a seed. Once again, he felt a strong sense of curiosity towards the mysterious little sword and Lord Alcohol in his body. With the sword intent seed, my strength will probably increase greatly. Lin Xian was excited. He closed his eyes and tried to communicate with the mysterious little sword in his body. This time, the mysterious little sword finally reacted. Lin Xian could sense a weak golden dot of light inside the mysterious little sword. Although it was weak, it had a terrifying aura. Is this my seed of sword intent? Lin Xian looked at it carefully and realized that the golden spot of light also had a lightning attribute. This sword intent seed was formed by the lightning in your body. You can call it lightning sword intent. Lord Alcohol's voice was somewhat weak. I can only help you with this. In the future, you will have to find the sword intent seed yourself. Can I still plant it? Lin Xian was puzzled. Yes, you will know in the future. Lord Alcohol smiled mysteriously. All right, I'm going to sleep for a period of time. Be careful. Lord Alcohol's voice was very weak. He had expended too much energy just now. Remember to help me find soul recovery medicine. Otherwise, I really won't be able to wake up, Lord Alcohol exhorted. Don't worry, Uncle. I will help you find it, Lin Xian said solemnly. After Lord Alcohol fell into a deep sleep, Lin Xian began studying the sword intent seed. He realized that ever since the golden sword intent seed was planted, he suddenly understood a lot more about lightning. He didn't need to deliberately control the lightning in his body. With just a thought, he could achieve the situation he wanted. I wonder how my lightning eclipse sword art is doing? Lin Xian couldn't wait to try it out. To his surprise, he easily executed the third level of the lightning eclipse sword art. The sword intent seed is so magical. Lin Xian felt that the lightning eclipse sword art wasn't difficult for him at all. He could even easily execute the third level of lightning slash. At this point, he had completely grasped the lightning eclipse sword art. This outcome made Lin Xian extremely happy. He decided to nurture the sword intent seed with all his might. With that, he sat cross-legged and circulated the spiritual energy in his body to nourish the seed. The golden sword intent seed was like a living body as it constantly absorbed the lightning attribute in the spiritual energy. At the same time, it also transmitted a very magical concept. Above the 9 heavens, a golden sea of lightning constantly churned. Every bolt of lightning was thicker than a person. They tore through the void in an extremely violent manner. Lin Xian felt as though he was in this sea of lightning as he felt the wrath of the lightning. However, this concept couldn't last for long. It could only last for a few seconds. However, Lin Xian believed that as the sword intent seed grew, he would once again feel that concept. If he were to fight Shangguan Luyan now, he was confident that he could defeat him in 3 moves. This was the advantage the sword intent seed gave him. This seed of sword intent will become my greatest trump card. Lin Xian couldn't wait to pass the 3rd stage. Chapter 62. In the following days, Lin Xian studied the sword intent seed while waiting for the 3rd test. A few days later, someone from the inner sect informed Lin Xian to receive the reward for the 2nd test. The person who came was Elder Fang's doorman. He led Lin Xian to Elder Fang's small courtyard and then went to inform Elder Fang. In the quiet courtyard, other than Lin Xian, there were 2 other people. They were Shangguan Luyan and Duan Fei. They were 2nd and 3rd place, so they naturally had rewards. Lin Xian greeted the 2 of them and then stood to the side, waiting for Elder Fang. A moment later, Elder Fang, who was dressed in a Taoist robe, walked out with a smile. I will be responsible for the rewards for the 3 of you. According to the rules, the 1st place will be rewarded with a pure spirit pill, a mid-profound rank martial art, and a human rank artifact. The second place will be rewarded with a low profound rank martial art and a small yellow pill. The third place will be rewarded with a profound rank martial art. Elder Fong said unhurriedly, Lin Xian, Shangguan Luyun, the two of you are here to receive your pills. Lin Xian and Shangguan Luyun walked forward and took the two white porcelain bottles. Then they respectfully retreated. Lin Xian opened the bottle and found a Longan-sized pill inside. There was a faint green color flowing on top of it. The medicinal fragrance made people feel refreshed. This pill can actually raise one's cultivation by a small realm. It's really abnormal. Lin Xian carefully put it away and waited for what would happen next. Elder Fong saw that Lin Xian could remain calm under the temptation of a grade 3 pill. His eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He took out another item and threw it to Lin Xian. This is the human rank artifact rewarded by the sect, a storage ring. Lin Xian took the ring and put it on happily. With this, he would have a lot of things to carry. He immediately used his divine sense to touch the storage ring and put the pure spirit pill inside. All right, let's go to the martial skills pavilion. Elder Fong waved his hand and covered the three of them. Then he flew away like a breeze. The three of them only felt a hazy fog wrap around their bodies. Then their bodies left the ground and flew quickly. They couldn't see what was happening outside, but based on their senses, they were flying upwards. Not long after, Lin Xian and the other two stood on the ground again. The three of them circulated their spiritual energy and immediately woke up. Follow me closely. Don't get lost, Elder Fong instructed. Then he walked in a certain direction. The three of them hurriedly followed behind, afraid that they would lose him. However, the three of them looked around curiously, their faces filled with curiosity. The path made of bluestone slabs was winding, leading into the distance. On both sides of the path, there were many flowers and trees. In the distance, there were a few grand palaces. They were covered by clouds and mist, making them seem unreal. During this time, they also encountered some disciples. These people all looked hurried, and their auras were abnormally powerful. Lin Xian and the other two could not compare to them. Is this the inner sect? Lin Xian whispered. Yes, the inner sect and outer sect are on two different mountains. Usually they don't move around. Ordinary outer sect disciples don't know about the inner sect situation, and inner sect disciples don't return to the outer sect. Duan Fei said. Shangguan Luyun took a deep breath and exhaled after a while. The spiritual energy here is much richer than the outer sect. Cultivating here will probably be twice as fast as cultivating in the outer sect. The three of them discussed in whispers. They were filled with yearning for the inner sect. Lin Xian thought about how he would be able to cultivate here soon, and immediately felt excited. If there were no accidents, he would soon become an inner sect disciple. His next goal would be to become a core disciple. Only then would he be qualified to return to his family. The further in they went, the fewer trees on both sides. Instead, there were some buildings and terraces. Furthermore, there were more and more people. Many inner sect disciples looked at the three of them with interest. Elder Fong led the three of them through the buildings and houses. Finally, they stopped in front of a building. Lin Xian looked up. In front of him was an octagonal pavilion. There were 3 floors, and each floor was 50 to 60 feet tall. Above the main entrance of the first floor, there was a black plaque. On it, there were 3 large golden words, Martial Skills Pavilion. These 3 words were written forcefully and deeply, and they emanated a grand aura that caused others to feel awestruck just by looking at them. Old Amo, an old friend is here to see you. Elder Fong laughed. Whoosh. As Elder Fong's words fell, Lin Xian and the other 2 felt a blur in front of them. When they blinked again, they found a hunchbacked old man in gray standing in front of them. The 3 of them were shocked. They did not see where the hunchbacked old man came from. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. Moreover, the hunchbacked old man looked like an ordinary person. There was nothing special about him. Alchemy maniac Fom. You're still willing to come out of your alchemy room? The hunchbacked old man scolded with a smile. Why did you bring 3 little babies? Old Mo. I'm here on official business. These 3 disciples are the top 3 of this year's tournament. According to the rules, they will enter the martial skills pavilion to choose a profound level cultivation method. Arrange it for them. Humph! I was wondering why an alchemy maniac, like you, was willing to come out. It turns out that you have a mission. The hunchbacked old man snorted. If you don't drink with me today, I'll eat all your pills in 2 days. Without waiting for Elder Fong's response, the hunchbacked old man said to Lin Xian and the other 2, the 3 of you go to the first floor. According to your ranking, each of you will choose a martial skill. The time limit is 30 minutes. Lin Xian and the other 2 respectfully agreed. Then, they excitedly walked into the martial skills pavilion. Pushing open the vermilion door, Lin Xian walked in. Inside were rows of bookshelves, but there was no one. In the entire hall of the first floor, there were only Lin Xian and the other 2. It seems that the martial skills pavilion is open on a daily basis. Let's hurry and find a suitable martial skill. Duan Fei said. The 3 of them did not delay and began to busy themselves. Lin Xian walked to a row of bookshelves and picked up a book to read. However, he found that there was only a name and a brief introduction. There was not a single word about cultivation. After thinking for a moment, he felt relieved. The martial skills pavilion was an important place in the sect. Of course, martial skills would not be easily placed here. It should be that the inner sect disciples chose a martial skill according to the brief introduction, and the elders would teach them the real cultivation content. Lin Xian slightly tidied up his situation. He found that he did not need to change his swordsmanship for the time being. The thunderous sword art was still his strongest martial skill. For the time being, he did not need a new swordsmanship. As for the footwork and body refining martial skills, he cultivated them to the middle yellow rank. Moreover, they were cultivated to the great perfection stage. As his cultivation increased, these 2 martial skills fell behind. Whether it was footwork or body refining martial skills, Lin Xian decided to choose footwork. He did not particularly need body refining martial skills. However, in terms of footwork, he fell behind by a lot. If he encountered a speed-type disciple like Duan Fei, he would not have any advantage. With a goal in mind, Lin Xian quickly began to search. Chapter 63. On the first floor of the Martial Skill Pavilion, most of them were low-level profound rank martial arts. Only a small portion were mid-level profound rank martial arts. Lin Xian quickly flipped through them and searched for them according to his own characteristics. Crane Shadow Steps, low-level profound rank martial arts, created by imitating the movements of flying demonic birds to hunt, nimble and fast, able to cross a river on a reed when practiced to large success. Traceless Steps, mid-level profound rank martial arts, graceful and nimble, practiced to large success, leaves no trace when walking on snow. Suddenly, the name of a book attracted his attention. Phantom Thunder Steps, mid-level profound rank martial arts, practiced to large success. Speed is like rushing thunder. Can use thunder and lightning to leave afterimages in the air. It is difficult to distinguish between real and fake. Can also detonate afterimages to attack enemies. Note, this cultivation technique requires thunder attribute. Also, its difficulty far surpasses ordinary mid-level profound rank martial arts. Must be chosen carefully. Although it was only a few sentences, it clearly introduced the advantages and disadvantages of this movement technique. Lin Xian just so happened to have thunder attribute spirit energy. This phantom thunder steps was very suitable for him. After making up his mind, Lin Xian didn't look at anything else. He looked around and found that Duan Fei and Shangguan Luyun were still searching. Thus, he took the book and walked out of the door. Elder Fong, Elder Mo, disciple has already chosen. Lin Xian saw the two elders as soon as he walked out, so he said respectfully, "Oh, so fast." The two elders were slightly surprised. The first floor of the Martial Skill Pavilion contained thousands of martial arts, and they were all profound rank cultivation techniques. Ordinary disciples would be fascinated by the variety of martial arts inside the pavilion for the first time. But this little guy in front of them didn't even take half an incense stick of time to choose. How could the two not be surprised? This child's temperament is very decisive. Not bad, not bad. Elder Fong smiled and nodded. In addition to their own talent, a martial artist's belief and character were also very important. Lin Xian was a very decisive person. This made Elder Fong very gratified. "Kid, let me see what you chose." Elder Mo was also curious. Lin Xian originally planned to ask the two elders for the cultivation method of the Phantom Thunder Steps. Now that he heard Elder Mo's words, he straightforwardly handed it over. It's actually the Phantom Thunder Steps." Elder Mo was surprised. He looked at Lin Xian in surprise and said in a low voice, "You are a thunder attribute martial artist?" "Yes." Lin Xian nodded. All the disciples who had watched the competition knew about this, and he had no intention of hiding it. After all, only by displaying a certain level of strength would the sect vigorously nurture you. At that moment, he stretched out his palm and activated his cultivation technique. A layer of faint golden light surged onto his palm. Tiny golden arcs of electricity shuttled back and forth continuously, emitting a faint sound of thunder. Golden lightning. Elder Hiroshi was even more surprised. Normal lightning was blue, and the more powerful ones were purple. However, this golden lightning arc was very rare. Furthermore, he felt a sense of familiarity from it, but he couldn't recall what it was. Although this Mirage Thunder Steps is a middle profound rank martial art, it's even harder to train than a high profound rank martial art. You have to think clearly and not waste your time. Elder Mo reminded. Many thanks for Old Mo's reminder. This disciple is confident that he can master this Phantom Thunder Steps. Lin Xian said gratefully. Elder Mo nodded and didn't say anything else. Lin Xian held the book and waited by the side. The second to come out was Shangguan Luyun. When he saw Lin Xian, he was stunned for a moment. It was as if he didn't expect Lin Xian to come out earlier than him. When the time was almost up, Duan Fei came out. At this point, the three of them had finished choosing their cultivation techniques. Elder Mo brought the three of them to the side door of the Martial Skills Pavilion, then took out 3 copies and handed them to the three of them. Following that, his face sank. Suddenly, an aura surged out from his body. It was like 100,000 mountains, making it hard for people to breathe. He said in a deep voice, "The cultivation techniques of the Martial Skills Pavilion can only be trained by yourself. You cannot pass it on to others. Otherwise, you will be punished according to the sect rules." This aura made people feel despair. No one would have thought that this seemingly ordinary old man would have such a profound cultivation. Lin Xian and the other two nodded in agreement and promised that they would not leak it out. Elder Mo's face relaxed, and the pressure faded away like a tide. Lin Xian and the other two received the martial arts. Under Elder Fong's lead, they returned to the outer sect. Lin Xian bid farewell to Elder Fong and Duan Fei and returned to his residence. He stroked the ring on his finger and pondered. The 3 rewards for first place were too important to him. First of all, this storage ring would make it very convenient for him to travel in the future. Although it was only a low-grade human-level storage ring, it was enough for Lin Xian. In about 10 cubic meters of space, there were only these two things. One was a small, white porcelain bottle. Inside it was a third-grade spirit gathering pill. The other was a middle-grade mystic ranked martial art, Phantom Thunder Steps. With a thought, the small, white porcelain bottle appeared in his hand. This pill that could raise one's cultivation level made him very excited. As for when to use it, he was a little hesitant. I have just advanced to the 6th rank of the meridian condensing stage. If I continue to advance, it will cause my cultivation level to become unstable. It is not good for me. It is better to keep it and wait for it to stabilize before using it. The effect will be better. Moreover, if I encounter danger, this pill is also a life-saving method. Thinking of this, Lin Xian flipped his palm and put away the small, white porcelain bottle. Then he took out the Phantom Thunder Steps and carefully read it. After half an incense stick of time, he put down the book. His expression was uncertain. The book was right. It was indeed difficult to cultivate. This was his first time coming into contact with a mystic-ranked martial art. He did not know how difficult a high-grade mystic-ranked martial art was, but he knew that the Phantom Thunder Steps was much more difficult than the Thunderclap sword art. The Thunderclap sword art was a high-grade yellow-ranked martial art. Its difficulty lay in precise control and abnormal speed. Furthermore, Lord Alcohol had said that the Thunderclap sword art he had was only a simplified version. The true Thunderclap sword art was infinitely powerful. The Phantom Thunder Steps was similar to the Thunderclap sword art in terms of speed. However, it also had a unique aspect. It was the word illusion. It used the power of thunder to condense an afterimage. Not only could it confuse the enemy, it could also be used as a means of attack. In other words, thunder was the core, and illusion was the means. Lin Xian had grasped the core. As long as he learned all the means, the Phantom Thunder Steps would be considered a success. It looks like attributes are indeed very important. Lin Xian sighed. As long as he had the core attribute, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort when learning the later martial arts of the same attribute. Lord Alcohol said that my longevity art can transform into any attribute. What kind of cultivation technique is this longevity art? Lin Xian really wanted to know, but Lord Alcohol was now in a deep slumber. Even if he asked, that fellow would probably not tell him. Let's not care about this for now. I'll try to master the Phantom Thunder Steps first. Lin Xian made a decision. When he bid farewell to Elder Fong, he learned that the 3rd stage would be held in 5 days. This meant that he had 5 days to master the Phantom Thunder Steps to the rudimentary realm. Let me see how difficult a mid-grade, mystic-ranked martial art is. Lin Xian carried the Crimson Flame sword and prepared to head to the Taiyang Mountains to cultivate. Chapter 64. 5 days passed in a flash. Tomorrow was the day of the 3rd round of the Intersect tryouts. Lin Xian had mastered the Phantom Thunder Steps in these 5 days. His speed was almost 1.5 times faster than when he used the Flickering Shadow Steps. Even if he met Duan Fei, Lin Xian was confident that he could compete with him in speed. It's worthy of being called an intermediate profound level martial art. It's so powerful just at the beginning. Lin Xian was looking forward to the results when he mastered it. The night passed in silence. The next day, Lin Xian arrived at the martial arts practice field early to prepare for the 3rd round. After him, more and more disciples arrived. They were all disciples who had passed the first 2 rounds. There were a total of 103 people. Lin Xian knew many of them. Beside him stood Tang Yu, Yin Qingyi, Luo Yi, and the others. Everyone was casually chatting. Not long after, a few black dots appeared in the sky and quickly flew towards the martial arts practice field. Ever since Lin Xian's right eye fused with the Black Lotus, not only could it form a black vortex, but his eyesight had also improved. He could see things very far away. He raised his head and found that the black dots were large ships flying rapidly in the sky. Rumble. The 3 ships were very fast. One of them landed on the martial arts practice field, causing a wave of air that caused the disciples to retreat. The cabin door opened, and 3 middle-aged men in purple robes walked out. The one in the lead was the square-faced, middle-aged man. He stood at the bow of the ship and looked down at the 103 disciples. He said loudly, "Line up and board the ship. I'll take you to the 3rd round." Everyone was puzzled. They didn't know where they were going, but they didn't slow down. One by one, they jumped onto the ship. The ship was very big, even with 103 disciples on board. It didn't seem crowded. Lin Xian stood on the ship and curiously sized it up. He found that although the ship was made of wood, it was extremely hard. It wasn't something that a meridian condensing realm cultivator could damage. "Rise," the square-faced, middle-aged man ordered. The ship that was more than 100 feet long shook a few times. Then it slowly rose into the sky and flew away with the other 2 ships. When the ship took off, the square-faced, middle-aged man ignored the crowd and walked into the cabin. The 100 or so people looked at each other, feeling uneasy. Furthermore, the ship was getting faster and faster, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. When it blew on their bodies, they felt a faint pain, except for some disciples with special body refinement skills and those with profound strength. The others all revolved their spirit power to form a protective layer on the surface of their bodies to resist the cold. After all, Lin Xian had practiced the Golden Jade body tempering mantra, so he could withstand this kind of wind. However, Tang Yu and Yin Qingyi, who were beside him, had both condensed protective spiritual light around their bodies. Under such strong winds, it was impossible to speak. Many people sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Lin Xian had nothing to do, so he looked around curiously. Finally, his gaze landed on the neighboring ship. The distance between the 2 ships was more than 100 meters, but Lin Xian could still see clearly with his right eye. He found that there were also some youths on the ships, but they were generally older than him. Among them, very few had activated their protective spiritual energy. They were all sitting in silence, wiping the weapons in their hands. Judging by their attire, they should be disciples of the Black Heaven sect. Could they be inner sect disciples? Lin Xian guessed in his heart. However, he had no idea why these people wanted to travel with them. After sailing for about 6 to 8 hours, the ship gradually slowed down. Many disciples stood up, knowing that they were about to reach their destination. In the last part of the journey, the ship slowed down, allowing Lin Xian and the others to see the scene below. However, the scene gave them a fright. Below them was a city. To be exact, it was a city that had been destroyed. Half of the 10-meter city wall had collapsed, and most of the buildings in the city were almost destroyed. There were broken stones and bones everywhere, and there was also a glaring scarlet color. The outer sect disciples were all stunned by the scene in front of them. After a while, someone murmured, "This is a city that has been invaded by demonic beasts. We have arrived at the front line of the war." "What? The front line of the war?" Many people exclaimed. The Great Xia Kingdom was not peaceful, especially in the areas that were in contact with the primeval forest. There were often wars, and Lin Xian and the others must have arrived at a battlefield. "We are so weak. How can we defeat those demonic beasts? Isn't this sending us to our deaths?" Someone said unhappily, "Yeah, I don't want to be eaten by demonic beasts." Many disciples said, "Shut up, a bunch of trash." Jiang Yilong said coldly in the crowd, "I don't think the sect will send us directly to the front line. Everyone, don't be impatient." Duan Fei said, in a low voice. Lin Xian looked at the ruined scene on the ground, and his mood was slightly gloomy. This was a cruel world. The weak would be eaten, and only the strong could survive. Suddenly, his eyebrows twitched, and he quickly turned around. The muscles on his body were all tensed up, and he stared at the sky with a serious expression. A sharp cry rang out, shaking everyone's eardrums and making them dizzy. The outer sect disciples all channeled their spiritual power to resist. Chapter 65. After 10 breaths, no one backed out. Cultivation was to defy the heavens and seize life. In addition, there were no demonic beasts in the test, so none of the disciples chose to back out. That's good. Remember your choice. Elder Goose smiled cheerfully. The big ship landed in an open space. This was a human stronghold. There were no demonic beasts around. The disciples disembarked and waited for the test. The other 2 big ships also stopped. The disciples on the ships quickly jumped off and walked towards the stronghold, completely ignoring Lin Xian and the rest. They are true warriors. If you can enter the inner sect, you may become one of them in the future, Elder Goose said. Now, you will automatically be divided into 4 groups. Each group will go to a small battlefield. You will live there for 3 days. Enjoy the rest of your life. Elder Goose smiled. Then 4 young men in purple robes walked out. Each of them was in their 20s. Their auras were far stronger than the disciples. Each of the young men led a group and ran towards the ruins. Lin Xian was in the 3rd group. The young man in the lead was called Yan Qing. His cultivation had reached the spiritual sea realm. His aura was unfathomable. The place you're going to is called Battlefield Number 3. It is in the west of the original city. There are no demonic beasts there, only ferocious beasts. Yan Qing said, "The highest level is rank 3. I suggest you form a group." "We are here." Yan Qing stopped in front of a tall building. Battlefield Number 3 was just ahead. "Remember, don't enter the forest. I will come back to pick you up in 3 days," Yan Qing said, and left, leaving the group of disciples standing there alone. In the distance, the roar of a beast could be heard. Lin Xian's group of 25 people included Yin Xingyi, Hua Yangping, Luo Yi, and others. Some were strong, and some were weak. Each of them had their own small groups. After Yan Qing left, these small groups immediately took action. Luo Yi said goodbye to Lin Xian and left with the members of the combat group. "Let's go," Lin Xian said to Yin Qingyi beside him. "Ah, just the 2 of us?" Yin Qingyi whispered. "Don't worry, the 2 of us are enough," Lin Xian said with a smile. The 2 of them used their movement techniques and advanced towards the depths of Number 3. The 3rd stage was a test of hunting ferocious beasts. The more ferocious beasts one hunted, the higher one's ranking would be. The ranking in the 3rd stage would determine the distribution of resources after entering the inner sect. Therefore, if he wanted to have a good time after entering the inner sect, he had to kill as many ferocious beasts as possible. Lin Xian's cultivation was at the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage, and Yin Qingyi was at the peak of the 5th level. Moreover, she was a sword array master and was very suited for teamwork. "What sword formations do you know?" Lin Xian asked. He had to understand before making a decision. "Yes, I know the illusory sword formation for energy transfer, the silver light sword formation for attack, and the bright moon sword formation for defense," Yin Qingyi said. "I'll lure the fierce beasts in a while. Then you use the silver light sword array to attack them." Lin Xian made a plan, and then went to find the fierce beasts. Vicious beasts weren't too strong. Generally, a rank 3 vicious beast was equivalent to a rank 7 meridian condensing period. A rank 2 vicious beast was equivalent to a rank 6 meridian condensing period, and a rank 1 vicious beast was equivalent to a rank 5 meridian condensing period. However, these ferocious beasts were very ferocious, and their bodies had a very heavy killing intent. If one was timid, their legs would probably go soft from fear. Lin Xian observed for a while and found that the fierce beasts here were usually in packs, and most of them were more than 5. If it was a single person, it wouldn't be easy to deal with them. He found that 6 rank 1 vicious beasts, crimson flame wolves, had fur that was like flames burning fiercely. Lin Xian used the phantom thunder step, turning into an afterimage as he rushed over. Without needing him to do anything, these crimson flame wolves bared their fangs and pounced on him. Their sharp claws left streaks of cold light in the air, incomparably swift and fierce. Lin Xian nimbly passed by the 6 crimson flame wolves and then led them to the trap. The 6 crimson flame wolves chased after him like crazy. In their eyes, Lin Xian was a very delicious meal. Silver light sword array. Lin Xian led them closer and then shouted at Yin Qingyi. Wang! A silver light was inserted in the middle of the crimson flame wolves, forming a sword array that was about 10 feet long. Yin Qingyi's face was tense as she activated the sword art. Suddenly, dozens of silver sword rays appeared in the sword array, whistling as they pierced towards the crimson flame wolves. A whirl. The 6 crimson flame wolves were attacked, and the fur on their bodies immediately stood up. Like burning flames, they pounced on Yin Qingyi fiercely. Bang! Lin Xian attacked from the side, and with a slash of his sword, a crimson flame wolf fell to the ground. After smelling the fresh blood, the remaining 5 crimson flame wolves seemed to be stimulated and became abnormally violent. Soon, they rushed out of the sword array. 3 of them pounced on Lin Xian, and 2 came in front of Yin Qingyi, opening their mouths to bite her. Yin Qingyi's small face was pale with fright. With a wave of her small hand, she hurriedly used the bright moon sword array. Behind her, a silver moon was faintly discernible, and the bright moonlight formed a protective shield, protecting her. Bang! Bang! 2 crimson flame wolves collided with the silver moon and bounced back violently, letting out mournful cries. However, they quickly got up and pounced on Yin Qingyi again. Yin Qingyi gritted her teeth and used the silver light sword array again. The 2 arrays were used at the same time and immediately injured the 2 crimson flame wolves. On the other side, Lin Xian fought 3 crimson flame wolves alone with ease. Golden electric arcs flashed under his feet, and he shuttled between the 3 crimson flame wolves. The crimson flame sword in his hand stabbed rapidly, and he could kill a crimson flame wolf in 2 or 3 strokes. In the blink of an eye, the 3 crimson flame wolves were easily killed by Lin Xian. He cut off their left ears and then looked at Yin Qingyi. Under the 2 sword arrays, the 2 crimson flame wolves did not hurt Yin Qingyi. Instead, more and more wounds appeared on their bodies, and they were gradually unable to hold on. Poof! One of the crimson flame wolves' throat was pierced by the silver light, and it fell to the ground, dead. The other ferocious beast was also pierced. It roared unwillingly, and then fell to the ground, unable to get up. Lin Xian gave Yin Qingyi a thumbs up and then walked over with a smile. Looks like the 3rd stage isn't that difficult. At our speed, we should be able to kill many ferocious beasts. And Yin Qingyi nodded. At the same time, the other disciples also killed some ferocious beasts. They worked together and quickly killed the ferocious beasts. Looks like these ferocious beasts aren't that powerful. A disciple laughed. That's right. When I enter the inner sect, I'll come to the front line of the battlefield to earn some battle merit points. The disciples chatted and laughed. In their opinion, the 3rd stage was much easier than the previous 2 stages. A wolf's howl pierced the sky, and it sounded sad and distant. Let's go, kill the ferocious beasts, and enter the inner sect. The disciples were excited. However, it did not take long for them to realize that something was wrong. As the wolf's howl fell, a large number of figures suddenly appeared around the ruins. One by one, the crimson flame wolves stuck out their long tongues. They stared coldly at the Black Heaven sect disciples and walked toward them step by step. At a glance, there were tens of thousands of them. Chapter 66. Countless red flame wolves surrounded the disciples. As far as the eye could see, it was a sea of red. Oh no! Retreat! The disciples' faces changed as they retreated in fear. If they were trapped here, the consequences would be unimaginable. On the other side, Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi were facing the same situation. Hundreds of red flame wolves stared at the two of them and growled. Oh no, we were too careless. Lin Xian's face was grave. He stuck close to Yin Qingyi and retreated quickly. A whoop! Dozens of red flame wolves at the front pounced on them. Their sharp claws danced in the air, aiming for their heads, chests, and other vital points. Courting death, Lin Xian swung the red flame sword in his hand. Golden lightning whizzed out and pierced through the red flame wolves in the sky. The powerful electricity contained in the lightning caused the red flame wolves to go numb. Their bodies stiffened instantly. Thump, thump, thump. The red flame wolves fell to the ground, their fur charred black. They twitched continuously. Lin Xian killed 10 red flame wolves with a swing of his sword in the blink of an eye. He and Yin Qingyi leaped backward with all their might. In the next moment, the red flame wolves howled and chased after Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi. Not only the two of them, but all the disciples on the battlefield were attacked. At this point, the outer disciples realized that the battlefield was not as simple as they thought. Killing 1 or 2 beasts did not mean anything. The most important thing was to survive in the midst of these beasts. This was also the predicament that humans faced. Although the beasts did not know martial arts, they were numerous. If it was a protracted battle, humans would not be able to afford it. Moreover, there were still beasts above the beasts. Some of the stronger beasts could even transform into human form and contend with the experts of the human race. Swoosh! Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi squeezed into a collapsed building. The narrow entrance blocked the pack of crimson flame wolves. Phew, we are safe for the time being. Lin Xian wiped off his cold sweat. The situation just now was very dangerous. If they had run any slower and been surrounded by the wolves, there would only be one outcome. What should we do now? Yin Qingyi asked nervously. Let's wait. Logically speaking, the content of the test shouldn't be so abnormal. No one can complete it under such circumstances. Lin Xian guessed, perhaps we've encountered a special situation. If that's the case, I believe the sect will soon send reinforcements. Yin Qingyi nodded and found a clean place to sit down. However, not long after, there was a loud bang. The hole that Lin Xian had blocked with a rock was suddenly blasted open, and a ferocious scarlet flame wolf rushed in. Chi. Lin Xian waved his arm, and the giant sword struck out horizontally, sending the crimson flame wolf flying, and coincidentally knocking away a few hungry wolves that wanted to come in. Qing Yi used the sword formation to block the entrance. Lin Xian hurriedly called out. Yin Qingyi pinched out a sword seal with her palm, and a 3-foot-long sword was inserted at the entrance of the cave. A circular sword formation was divided into 2 halves by the entrance of the cave. One half was inside, and the other half was outside. The silver sword rays were like silver snakes dancing within the sword formation. Each time, they would pierce through a scarlet flame wolf. However, the fresh blood made the wolf pack even more frenzied. A scarlet flame wolf fell, but more of them pounced towards the entrance of the cave. Soon, The wolf corpses outside piled up into a small mountain, blocking the entrance of the cave. Yin Qingyi was sweating profusely, and her little face was flushed red. She looked extremely adorable. Lin Xian handed her a recovery elixir and told her to rest. I estimate that it won't be long before you break through to the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. Lin Xian looked at Yin Qingyi and said, "Yes, the bottleneck has loosened a lot." Yin Qingyi nodded obediently. "This is the first time I've activated the sword formation for such a long time. Have a good rest," Lin Xian said with a smile. Yin Qingyi put away the sword formation and then sat cross-legged on the ground to regulate her breathing. Her delicate body was suffused with a faint glow, as bright as the moonlight. Lin Xian did not disturb her. Instead, he looked around the small space. There were many tables and chairs, as well as a few broken stone pillars. The ground was covered with an animal skin carpet. It looked like this place used to be rich. Lin Xian observed for a while, but did not find anything of value. Then he retracted his gaze. Beside him, the glow on Yin Qingyi's body grew brighter and brighter. It was as if a silver moon had wrapped around her. Is she about to break through? Lin Xian's lips curled up. Boom. At this moment, there was a loud noise outside. The corpses of the scarlet flame wolves were torn apart and scattered to the sides. The entrance of the cave has been opened? Lin Xian's face darkened. He grabbed the scarlet flame sword, and in a flash he came to the entrance of the cave. "You just need to break through." "I'm here," Lin Xian said in a low voice. Lin Xian's words caused Yin Qingyi's delicate body to tremble behind him. Her spiritual energy, which had been somewhat chaotic, immediately stabilized. Lin Xian felt the change behind him, and only then did he relax. He looked outside the cave with rapt attention, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. Through the cracks in the rocks, he saw a huge scarlet flame wolf outside the cave. It was 3 times the size of an ordinary scarlet flame wolf, and it was staring fiercely at the entrance of the cave. This huge scarlet flame wolf had a strong murderous aura on its body. There was also a faint trace of demon aura. The surrounding wolves all lowered their heads in front of it and whimpered. This aura, Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. This is a level 3 dire beast. A level 3 dire beast was equivalent to a level 7 condensing meridian stage cultivator. Moreover, it was more ferocious and difficult to deal with than an ordinary level 7 cultivator. This should be the leader of the wolf pack. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. Lin Xian's thunder and lightning spiritual energy was ready to be released. As soon as the leader wolf made a move, he would immediately draw his sword. The leader wolf's green eyes were filled with a cold light. Its entire body arched, and the murderous aura on its body, mixed with a trace of demon aura, enveloped it. Lin Xian did not dare to act rashly. If he broke this wall, Yin Qingyi, who was behind him, would be in danger. He could only intimidate the leader wolf now and stall for time. As long as Yin Qingyi succeeded in her advancement, everything would be easy. That's right, try my sword essence. Lin Xian's lips curled up. He slowly injected spiritual energy into the seed of sword essence and then slowly activated it. In the next moment, a fierce aura burst out from his body. Lin Xian seemed to have turned into a bolt of golden lightning, filled with a dangerous aura. The golden electric current dashed in the air, as if it wanted to tear everything apart. The huge leader wolf kept stomping on the ground with its 4 limbs, and its eyes were filled with fear. The originally ferocious leader wolf became as docile as a puppy in front of Lin Xian. The moment he drew his sword, there was a loud sound of thunder between heaven and earth, and a golden sword ray flashed past. Chapter 67. The body of the alpha wolf, which was the size of a buffalo, was split in half and fell to the ground. Inside the cave, Lin Xian closed his eyes and took a deep breath. That sword just now allowed him to experience a trace of the concept of thunder and lightning. It was incomparably mysterious. Outside the cave, the death of the alpha wolf caused the surrounding crimson flame wolves to be terrified. They all retreated, not daring to move forward. Far away from the third battlefield, there was a red-haired youth riding a crimson flame demon wolf. This wolf was about the same size as an ordinary crimson flame wolf, but the aura it emitted was stronger than the alpha wolf. Moreover, it emitted traces of demonic energy. It was actually a demonic beast, and on top of this demonic beast, there was actually a youth. If one looked closely, they would find that this red-haired youth was different from a normal human. First of all, his eyes were actually dark green, like two balls of fire, burning and jumping. Behind him, there was a red tail, like a red flame, that kept swaying. Beside the red-haired youth, there was another person. His entire body was covered in a black robe, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, his voice was very young. The Black Sky sect is one of the 3 sects of the Cloud State. If we can capture all of their disciples in one fell swoop, it will be a big blow to them. The black-robed person said, "Don't worry. This time, I summoned a total of 4 rank 3 ferocious beasts and countless crimson flame wolves. It's enough to deal with these outer sect disciples." The red-haired youth rode on the demonic beast and said casually, "If this matter succeeds, Father will be happy. Yuming, thank you so much this time." The red-haired youth's voice had a trace of excitement. The black-robed person called Yuming laughed softly. It's Yuming's honor to be able to serve young Master Chiyu. The youth called Chiyu grabbed the fur of the crimson flame demon wolf and looked into the distance with a proud expression. Suddenly, his expression froze. "What's wrong?" Yuming asked beside him. A rank 3 crimson flame wolf died. Chiyu was in disbelief. Damn it, they can actually kill a rank 3 ferocious beast. It shouldn't be. Logically speaking, a rank 3 alpha wolf should have at least a few hundred crimson flame wolves around it. This kind of power, a rank 6 meridian condensing stage cultivator would not dare to resist no matter how many people there are. Only a cultivator whose cultivation has reached the 8th step or higher would be able to kill the alpha wolf. Could it be that an inner disciple of the Black Heaven sect is here? The black-robed man. Yuming guessed, "Humph, he actually dared to kill my subordinate in front of me. He truly deserves to die." Chiyu said hatefully, "Yuming, come with me to take a look." "No." The silver light danced like a waterfall, strangling the scarlet flame wolves in the sword array. Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi's figures flashed, and they rushed out of the cave. "Qingyi, you manage the sword array. Leave the rest to me," Lin Xian said. "Okay." Yin Qingyi's small hands formed another seal, and a bright moon appeared behind her. Bright moon sword array. With the 2 arrays combined, it had both offense and defense. Yin Qingyi stood outside the cave, activating the sword array. Phantom thunder step. Lin Xian transformed into a golden bolt of lightning, shuttling through the wolf pack. He did not kill them directly. Against countless wolves, Lin Xian's thunderclap sword art was fast, but it took a lot of effort to activate it over a long period of time. He only sent the scarlet flame wolves flying, then threw them into the silver light sword array. It had to be said that a group attack like the sword array was very effective in this situation. All the scarlet flame wolves that entered the silver light sword array were mercilessly pierced through by the silver sword light. At this time, the silver light sword array was like a meat grinder, crazily harvesting the scarlet flame wolves. Gradually, the wolf corpses in the sword array piled up into a small hill. In a flash, Lin Xian came to the periphery of the sword array and punched out. The golden fist whizzed out, forming a fierce fist wind, sending the scarlet flame wolf corpses on the ground flying. Then he continued to throw the remaining scarlet flame wolves into the sword array. In the other 3 battlefields, Shangguan Luyan and the other Outer Sect 4 heroes also gathered some disciples and fought with all their might. However, the Scarlet Flame wolves they killed were not even 1/10 of Lin Xian's. Moreover, they still had to face the threat of the leader wolf. However, this situation did not last long. Soon, the sect support team rushed over. There was a support team in each battlefield. It was formed by a young man in a purple robe and 30 intersect disciples. They were like a sharp knife, quickly stabbing into the wolf pack and tearing open a gap. Many disciples were rescued and joined them. In the end, except for the disciples who died, the rest of the outer sect disciples were rescued by the support team. Lin Xian is in this battlefield, but we haven't found him yet. An outer sect disciple said, Lin Xian, #1 in the arena battle. Could it be that he shouldn't be dead? I think he's hiding. Go and find him immediately, the young man in the purple robe ordered. The remaining 6 disciples are dead. The purple-robed youth sighed. Let's go back to the base. Elder Gu was furious. All the elders of the Xiantian sect in the stronghold were furious. There had never been a trial like this, where they had lost nearly 1/3 of their disciples. This is the sect's mistake. We were actually ambushed by the Scarlet Flame Wolves. Elder Gu said in a deep voice, the sect will definitely avenge this, and all of you will enter the inner court. Inner court. The outer court disciples who participated in the trial were all shocked. They had worked so hard just to enter the inner court. Junior brother, don't worry. I will definitely avenge you. When we become stronger in the inner court, we will definitely massacre the Scarlet Flame Wolves. Many disciples secretly swore in their hearts, you were lucky to be able to survive. It is also your strength. In this trial, there are a few people who performed very well. They will be rewarded by the sect. Everyone looked at the few people in front of them. There was Lin Xian, Yin Qingyi, Shangguan Luyun, and so on. However, more people were looking at Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi. The news of them killing hundreds of Scarlet Flame Wolves had spread. Everyone looked at the 2 of them, as if they were monsters. Tang Yu looked at the 2 of them with a hint of jealousy in his eyes. Lin Xian was fine with these gazes. He did not have much of a reaction. On the other hand, Yin Qingyi's small hands were nervously holding the corner of her clothes. Her face was full of shyness. As Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi had killed the most beasts, the 2 of them were tied for first place. In addition to Lin Xian's previous results, the first place of the inner court qualifier this time was Lin Xian. As for the rewards, they would be given out when they returned to the sect. The crowd rested for half a day. Under Elder Gu's lead, they returned to the Black Heaven sect. After returning to the outer court and resting for 3 days, these disciples entered the inner court and became inner court disciples. The inner court disciples were treated very well. Every 3 months, they could enter the martial skills pavilion to choose a cultivation technique. Every month, the inner court elders would give them pointers on martial arts. The living quarters were also far better than the outer court disciples. Every disciple had their own small courtyard. There was also a small training room in the house to ensure that they would not be disturbed during their training. In other aspects, every inner court disciple had to complete a sect mission every month. There were no other compulsory missions. Of course, if you wanted to exchange for more treasures, you would need a ranking on the stone tablet and battle merit points. The ranking on the stone tablets was a major feature of the inner court. In the inner court plaza, There were several stone tablets that were more than 3 feet tall. They were filled with names. Different stone tablets represented different areas. The order of the names represented the disciples' ranking. The higher the ranking, the more resources one could enjoy. This formed a virtuous cycle. When Lin Xian and the other outer court disciples first entered the inner court, they went to look at the unique stone tablets. There were a total of 3 stone tablets. They were the inner court ranking, the cultivation tower ranking, and the battle merit ranking. The inner court ranking was the ranking of all the disciples in the annual inner court assembly. A total of 100 disciples were included. The ranking of the cultivation pagoda was based on each disciple's performance in the cultivation pagoda. As for what the cultivation pagoda was, Lin Xian only found out after asking. It was a place that could assist in cultivation. At the same time, it could also conduct various tests. As for the details, he would only know after he tried it himself. As for the last one, it was the battle merit ranking. Battle merit points could be obtained by going to the front lines to hunt demonic beasts or completing related missions. These 3 stone tablets only recorded the top 100 inner court disciples. Lin Xian discovered that the first name on all 3 stone tablets was the same person, Myriad Sword Star, the number 1 inner court disciple. At the same time, he was also one of the top 10 core disciples. The top 10 core disciples were the core disciples. The 3 major powers in the outer court had their foundations in the inner court. Moreover, behind each power was a core disciple. Lin Xian and the others understood the basic situation. Now, it was up to their own efforts. Lin Xian's goal was to be in the top 10 of each ranking. Only by entering the top 10 would he be able to become a core disciple. Only then would he be able to successfully return to his family. In the evening, Lin Xian returned to his own room. His reward had already been given out. He had obtained the right to use the cultivation tower for 10 hours. Is the cultivation tower really so magical? Lin Xian had a trace of anticipation in his heart. Chapter 69. The Cultivation Pagoda was one of the holy lands of the inner sect. It had all kinds of magical functions that made the inner sect disciples extremely excited. Lin Xian had just entered the inner sect, so he didn't know how precious 10 hours was to these disciples. If other inner sect disciples knew, they would definitely be jealous to death. The next morning, Lin Xian was woken up. A young girl with a long sword on her back stood outside the door with a smile. She curiously sized up Lin Xian and doubtfully asked, "You're this time's number 1, Lin Xian? Nothing special?" The young girl with the long sword on her back carefully looked at him. "That's me. I wonder what senior sister is looking for me for?" Lin Xian was puzzled. "Of course, it's to see our instructor?" The young girl very casually said. "Instructor?" Lin Xian was even more puzzled. "You don't know?" The young girl was very surprised. All new inner sect disciples have their own instructor. He is responsible for everything within the sect, including training and testing. So it's like that. Looks like the treatment of inner sect disciples is really good. There's even someone to guide them. No wonder so many people want to enter the inner sect. Lin Xian gradually understood that there was a big difference between the inner sect and outer sect. However, according to the ranking of the selection, you'll be assigned different instructors. You're very lucky to be assigned to Instructor Morong. The young girl's face was full of pride. "Let's go. Follow me to report." The young girl with the long sword on her back waved her hand. Lin Xian followed her out of the small courtyard and into a secluded path. "My name is Yi Qing. You can call me Senior Sister Yi from now on." The young girl in front led the way. "Senior Sister Yi, what kind of person is this Instructor Morong? And how many disciples does she have?" Lin Xian wanted to know some things. "Instructor Morong is very powerful. She's one of the last core disciples. She's very nice. so she won't make things difficult for us. Yi Qing said. As for the disciples under her, there's a total of 3, including you. One of the core disciples. A total of 3. Lin Xian was a little surprised. He didn't think that his instructor would actually be one of the top 10 core disciples of the previous batch. Moreover, she only had 3 disciples. In the Black Heaven sect, once one was over the age of 25, one would no longer be a disciple. Instead, one would stay in the sect with other identities such as deacons. Instructor Morong was once one of the top 10 core disciples, which was enough to prove her strength. The two quickly moved forward. In front of them was a small palace. Yi Qing brought Lin Xian inside. "Teacher, I brought Lin Xian," Yi Qing cheerfully said. A graceful figure walked out and stood on the stone platform, looking at Lin Xian. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes, sizing up the figure. She was dressed in light green armor, which accentuated her lithe figure. She was a very young woman. Lin Xian estimated that she was around 26 or 27 years old. She had short hair, which made her look less charming, but more heroic. "Greetings, Instructor Morong," Lin Xian respectfully said. Instructor Morong nodded. "Lin Xian, first place in the selection. Not bad. However, there are many geniuses in the inner sect. If you don't work hard, you will be suppressed sooner or later. I hope you can work hard and step into a higher realm of martial arts. Thank you for your reminder, Instructor. Lin Xian will remember it. Next, let me see what level you have reached." Murong Qianling pulled out the long saber at her waist. "Bring out your full strength and attack me." "Yes." Lin Xian's eyes focused. He flicked his storage ring, and a dark red sword appeared in his hand. His figure flashed, and he rushed over. Thunderous sword art. Lin Xian used his best sword art as soon as he came up. Sword chi surged, and golden electric arcs jumped. This sword was aimed at Murong Qianling's throat. Who would have thought that Murong Qianling would not retreat, and instead move forward to meet Lin Xian's attack head-on? Sword chi flashed, dazzling people. The long sword in Murong Qianling's hand lightly touched Lin Xian's big sword, and then strangely slid towards Lin Xian's throat. Lin Xian felt a tyrannical power instantly break through his lightning defense, causing his big sword to deviate. At the same time, he felt a chill on his neck. The ice-cold sword tip was already at his throat. So fast. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He couldn't see the sword's trajectory clearly. Of course, if he used his right eye, he might be able to see it clearly. However, his body couldn't make any movements to dodge. "If we were on the battlefield, you would already be dead," Murong Qianling coldly said. Lin Xian knew that she was right. However, if it was a life-and-death battle, with his means, he could definitely kill Murong Qianling at the same time. Is this the standard of a core disciple? It's really strong. Lin Xian wasn't depressed. He believed that as long as he was given time, he would soon reach this standard. "Your sword technique is very fast, but it's not accurate enough," Murong Qianling said. "Although speed can suppress the opponent, if the opponent can find your flaw and attack later, then you'll be in danger." Lin Xian looked pensive. He really hadn't met an opponent who could suppress him. However, today's matter reminded him not to be careless. "Of course, if your speed can be so fast that I don't have a chance to attack, then you can also win." "Thank you for your guidance," Lin Xian gratefully said. Yi Qing take him to familiarize him with the sect. Murong Qianling put away her long sword. After bidding farewell to Murong Qianling, the two walked towards the front mountain. "How is it? Isn't Instructor Morong powerful?" Yi Qing blinked his eyes. "You don't have to be disappointed. I was also defeated in one move. Even senior brother Luo didn't escape this fate. I guess Instructor Morong just wants to remind you that there is always someone better than you." She wants to prevent you from being arrogant and causing trouble everywhere. Lin Xian bitterly smiled. It seemed like his fellow disciples had all been beaten by Instructor Morong. Oh, right, who is senior brother Luo. He is also Instructor Morong's disciple. He entered the sect earlier than us, and is now in the top 30. Yi Qing said with admiration. Lin Xian now had an understanding of his future life. Next, he changed the topic and asked about the cultivation pagoda. When Yi Qing heard that Lin Xian had 10 hours of cultivation time, her small mouth opened wide. Junior brother Lin, you are really lucky. You actually have 10 hours of cultivation time. Yi Qing enviously said, 10 hours, is it very long? Lin Xian didn't understand. You just entered the sect, so you don't know how precious the cultivation pagoda is. To be exact, it is not a product of our mysterious sky sect, but an ancient ruin. Ancient ruin? Lin Xian was stunned. Yes, although it is broken, the magical things inside are far beyond our understanding. Look, the cultivation pagoda is in front. Yi Qing pointed at a magnificent pagoda in front of them. It was a pitch-black pagoda with 13 floors. Even from afar, one could feel a boundless aura. After walking in, Lin Xian discovered that there was a faint sense of danger around the pagoda. Lin Xian quietly activated his right eye and discovered that there were countless invisible rays of light around the pagoda. It should be a defensive array. Lin Xian took a few more glances before following Yi Qing in. Chapter 70. The cultivation pagoda is divided into many areas. There's the spirit chi area, where the concentration of spirit chi is many times higher than outside. There's also the gravity area, where you can adjust the gravity to different degrees for cultivation. Yi Qing explained as they walked. In addition, there are also some small secret realms, which are like real worlds. There are many powerful creatures inside, and many disciples like to go in to cultivate. I suggest you go to the gravity area. After all, you just entered the inner sect, and increasing your strength is the most important thing. Lin Xian touched his chin. To be honest, he was more interested in the small secret realms. Senior sister, I wonder what the small secret realms are like. Yi Qing frowned. You just entered the inner sect, and you're already in a small secret realm. Fine, I'll let you see it so you don't give up. Yi Qing brought Lin Xian to the 3rd floor of the cultivation pagoda and walked into an empty room. After Lin Xian and Yi Qing entered, the room closed with a bang. The room was very simple, and there was only a strange array platform. Yi Qing pointed at the black array platform and said, "Sit on it, then place your identity jade pendant in the groove." Lin Xian did as he was told. An array of light appeared on the array platform, enveloping Lin Xian. He felt his mind shake, as if it had left his body, and was dragged into a mysterious place. While Lin Xian was trying out the small secret realms, a group of people came to the inner sect. The inner sect disciples who were on a mission outside had returned, and among them was Zhang Bin's brother, Zhang Qian. This handsome young man with a saber on his back was furious when he heard that his brother had been killed, and when he found out that the murderer had entered the inner sect, he was even more furious. Lin Xian, I'll definitely kill you. Zhang Qian's face was ferocious. Zhang Qian's return caused the entire inner sect to be in an uproar. Almost everyone knew about this. And when they found out that Lin Xian was actually the number 1 new disciple, they were even more excited. However, most of them were just watching a show. They didn't think that a brat who had just entered the inner sect could beat a veteran like Zhang Qian. Lin Xian didn't know what was going on outside. He had already arrived at a special place. With a flash of white light, Lin Xian found himself in an unfamiliar place. It was a space that resembled a maze. There were cold walls, long passages, and no movement. What a strange place, Lin Xian muttered. My body! Suddenly, his expression changed drastically as he realized that the mysterious small sword in his body was no longer there. This caused him to lose focus for a moment. Chi, chi. Just as he was lost in thought, 3 streaks of sword light appeared silently and pierced towards his vital points. At the critical moment, the vigilance of a martial artist made him come back to his senses. Using the Phantom Thunder step, he left behind an afterimage and narrowly avoided this killing move. 3 rays of sword light pierced through the air. Then 3 black-robed men walked out from the void and stared coldly at Lin Xian. What a strange place, what a strange sword art. Lin Xian's heart sank. He finally knew why Yi Qing didn't approve of him coming here. It was too scary. The slightest carelessness would cause him to fall here. However, Lin Xian quickly had a guess. Maybe my body didn't enter, but my mind did. Lin Xian's guess wasn't wrong. This was indeed a strange spiritual space. Yi Qing didn't tell him in advance because he wanted to teach him a lesson. Spiritual space. Lin Xian calmed down. Without the seed of sword intent, it's very difficult for me to display sword intent. I can only rely on my own strength. With a thought, a long sword formed in his hand. There are no restrictions here. I can fully display my strength. Lin Xian laughed and went forward with his sword. The 3 black-robed men were all at the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. With the 3 of them working together, it was enough to kill a 7th level meridian condensing stage cultivator. The 3 soundless long swords were like poisonous snakes in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The angle of each attack was very tricky. Lin Xian used the Phantom Thunder steps. His body was erratic, and in an instant he arrived behind a black-robed man. The golden sword light flashed, and a bloody hole appeared between the eyebrows of the black-robed man, and he fell down. Puff, puff. Another 2 rays of sword light. The other 2 black-robed men were also stabbed between their eyebrows. They didn't have the slightest strength to resist. Although he didn't have the seed of sword intent, Lin Xian could still simulate 1 or 2 lightning sword intent. He didn't stop and continued to move forward. In the outside world, Yi Qing had a smile on her face. She didn't tell Lin Xian in advance about the mystery of this formation because she wanted to teach Lin Xian a lesson. According to her speculation, Lin Xian should be defeated soon. However, an hour had passed, and Lin Xian didn't have the slightest reaction. He was still in the spiritual space. Yi Qing's mouth was wide open. She even suspected that there was a problem with the formation. Otherwise, how could she explain Lin Xian not coming out for such a long time? She was very clear about this formation. The opponents inside were very strong. First, there were Meridian Condensing Stage 6 opponents. The number increased from 3 to 10, then Meridian Condensing Stage 7, and so on. According to her speculation about Lin Xian would at most survive the first assassination. When the number increased to 4, Lin Xian would be defeated. However, the situation was completely out of her expectations. After waiting for an entire hour, Lin Xian came out. When Lin Xian's body swayed in the formation, Yi Qing let out a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that there was a problem with the formation. What did you experience in there? Why did you only come out now? Yi Qing asked suspiciously. Oh, my movement technique is good. I can delay the opponents. Lin Xian lied. He didn't want to reveal too much. In fact, in the spiritual space, Lin Xian had already broken through the encirclement of Meridian Condensing Stage 6. Moreover, he was able to withstand the encirclement of 3 Meridian Condensing Stage 7 opponents. It was just that this kind of thing was too scary. He didn't want to cause a sensation. So that's how it is. Hearing that Lin Xian was using his movement technique to delay time, Yi Qing let out a sigh of relief. Let's go. We can use the rest of the time later. After Lin Xian's spirit returned to his body, he found that the fusion with the sword Intent Seed was even closer. This made him very happy. The two of them left the cultivation pagoda and prepared to go back. At this moment, a group of people surrounded them. You are Lin Xian's? A youth with a saber on his back coldly said. Zhang Qian, what do you mean? On the side, Yi Qing was annoyed. Zhang Qian. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He cautiously looked at the figure in front of him. From that body, he could feel a pressure from the realm. Meridian Condensing Stage 8. Lin Xian was secretly shocked. However, his face was calm. I am Lin Xian. What do you want? Lin Xian's attitude made the surrounding people stunned. It seemed that this youth wasn't afraid of Zhang Qian. Did he have something to rely on? You killed my little brother, and you still dare to ask me what I want. Zhang Qian was like an angry tiger, ready to explode at any time. What do you want? Lin Xian was too lazy to explain. In any case, it was useless. A life for a life. Zhang Qian's voice was like the cold wind of the north, chilling people to the bone. Zhang Qian, you dare. Lin Xian is Instructor Morong's disciple. Yi Qing warned. Instructor Morong. The surrounding people looked at Lin Xian in surprise. They didn't expect him to be Instructor Morong's disciple. Little brat, I will let you know that no one can save you. Zhang Qian still didn't back down. Lin Xian's eyes were cold. He knew that there was no way to resolve this matter. Only one side fell. 3 months later, a life and death battle. Do you dare? Lin Xian slowly opened his mouth. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.